Boy.
Okay. Going to call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Bolinas Community Public Utility District. Board of Directors are present. Director Walker will be here shortly. Today is October 22nd, 2025. And we are meeting at the BPUD's office on 270 Elm Road in Bolinas. Next item on the agenda is community expression, opportunity for members of the audience to address the board on a matter which is not on the agenda and for which no action can be taken. But we will entertain a brief discussion on a subject of your choosing. Is there any community expression? None appearing. Next on the agenda is consideration of amending any order of the items on the agenda. Is there any proposal to change the order of any of these items?
Yeah, well, let me just check in. Kirsten, you're planning to come here, right?
I am. I probably
Okay.
need another 20 minutes.
Okay.
Or I can come straight there if we think we'll be done by 7.
I would think that would be a miracle.
Yeah. Dream on.
Okay.
Yeah, so can I suggest that we move the manager's report up to the right now?
Okay, so we would take item 8 and
Move it to 1.
not 9 and thereafter, is that right?
Yeah, no, we don't have to. I think 20 minutes, that's usually around how much the manager's report
Okay.
takes, so.
All right, so we're going to begin the meeting with item 8, and then we'll move back up to the action items.
Yeah.
All right, and so with no further ado, I will call item 8, manager's update.
George, a quick question. This is wireless is BPUD, right? VCPUD.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is that password?
Oh, well, it said it couldn't connect, but it wasn't the password problem. Anyway,
Huh,
ignore me. I'm fine.
okay.
All right, Georgia, take it away.
Okay, sorry. Things here. All right, can y'all see that? Sorry, this is a
Yeah.
little awkward. I can't see over there, so.
Oh, we can see what you're seeing.
Okay, good. All right, so the status of BPUD's water supply. So our production here was and remember we're just looking at the previous month, was 154 gallons per day per connection. This was down from 163 gallons per day per connection. So we're kind of entering into that phase where water consumption is going down and we're producing less water to accommodate it. Water consumption in September averaged 156 gallons per day per connection. This is down from August consumption, which averaged 164. And if we look at the past, the comparison of the last 3 years, we're also coming down, which we've now seen a couple of months in a row, which is really good news. Basically, we have an 8% decrease from last September.
Great.
This is just looking at the total potable supply and demand. As you've seen, it just effectively reflects what we saw at the gallon per day level per connection. And then similarly, if we look at the consumption at the meter, so what is actually being consumed by the customer, we are seeing that this is effectively, hard to see here, a little tiny, but basically this dark blue, which is reflecting the last quarter's worth of staggered. Remember, it's kind of complicated because of our staggering, but basically this is kind of a monthly reflection of kind of a tranche of water usage. And basically that is down from that other little tranche. So, yep.
I was wondering, Do our 3 zones of meter reads, are they all the same number of meters?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
Are they're always the same?
Too easy.
They're
Yeah.
always the same meters though, every.
Yep.
Right, like,
Mhm.
this, like these meters for that reading were the same as last year's meters.
Yes, yeah. So basically, I mean, if we look at what this actually color reflects, this is July, August, September downtown.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's specifically the tranche we were looking at this time around. And again, it's, you know, very much in the rears and it's kind of just one snippet. So, but it's, you know, what I'm basically using this for is just kind of, hey, how do we look compared to last year's and anything weird going on? And also, yeah, it's just nice to see what actually people are consuming as opposed to what we're actually sending out. The reservoirs, are, sorry, not the reservoirs, the Hondo is looking good. We were drawing from the upper impoundment last time. That's the same this time, and so I'm just gonna play the video for you. I don't know if I can play my sound. So this is the lower. And this is the upper.
Like Wizard of Oz. Water Wisdom's voice.
You're getting feedback now because of the sound.
Yes. Turn my volume off. Okay, yes, yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm like, I'm off camera too, and I'm like, Wizard of Oz over here. Okay. We had some technical difficulties getting our drone shots this time around, so I'll show you next time. You know, basically last 2 months by the time we get there. But basically the Azola is at bay and looks fine. And we're not using the reservoir water. So that brings me to leaks. As you guys are aware, because I informed you, because there was effectively a lot of emergencies going on, particularly with the booster line. So basically that all kind of came to a head within the last time that I was talking to you. Of course, we've continually dealt with it for, I think, you know, as soon as I got here, it was already an ongoing issue. But it just basically got untenable within the last month. They were effectively just fixing a leak and then immediately it would just, you know, it was kind of like the vision of the little Dutch boy. I think it was just basically really, yeah, really not it was pretty dysfunctional, just the amount of time we were having to spend on it. So we basically got Piazza out there, schemed up a pretty simple bypass. And fortunately, I'll just go on, and this is, you know, an example of one of the leaks that we were dealing with. That's kind of what it all looked like. So they weren't like always huge leaks, but they were just continual. And I suspect that the material was just totally falling apart. If you remember, it was super thin walled. And this is basically, it's been kind of fun. Andrew Spalding and I are kind of getting more into mapping our infrastructure on Google Earth. Effectively, you know, even if we went to like a fancier program, doing all of this, you have to, it's not like somebody can magically find out where all of our stuff is. So whether we ultimately use this or we feed this into something fancier, it's been useful, and it's yeah, you can see that this particular, so this is honing in on that portion of the booster line that effectively we replaced. It's still actually in the ground because as we'll talk about it during the resolution for that emergency repair, we basically just put in the bypass. There's still work to be done associated with that emergency repair. But basically it's a pretty complicated area because we have the 2 reservoirs on either side, as you can see right here, hopefully in this picture. So we have lines that are feeding, diverting to those, coming back from them. We have the raw water line coming from the Arroyo Hondo, and we have other stuff that is basically like old ghost stuff going on there that was like once we got in there, Andrew would be like scratching his head and be like, what is this? So yeah, it's been nice to actually map some of these features. And overall, I think everyone's very happy to have it dealt with. You can see one of the features here, and what made it really actually quite easy is that there's only 2 service lines on this portion. So effectively, those are on the bypass now, but we'll have to do some work associated with better servicing them. You can see that they're actually, you can't quite tell here because of how far away we are, but you can see one of the homes that's served. This is a Commonweal property. The service line is really far away, so it's just like it makes sense at this point to move their meter closer to the home because they deal with a lot of leaks on their side of the property. And we've talked to them about that work. Some of it is, obviously on them to do the work associated with it. And they're being very accommodating and appreciative that we're doing this. And then the other thing you can't really tell over here is that their other meter is across the road. It actually makes more sense for it to be on the, for them not to deal with leaks on Mesa Road, for instance, for their service line. So we'll also use this opportunity to get their meter on their side of the road. That, fortunately, we have not been dealing with a lot of other leaks besides the booster leak. There is a leak that you guys have probably seen developing in front of Smiley's. We're not exactly sure what's going on there. Obviously, it's under pavement, and so it's always hard to know exactly what's going on, but it appears to be surfacing you can kind of see the plug pave here. This was for the fire suppression system for Smiley's. But we suspect that because of the condition, I don't know if you remember, like last year around this time, we were dealing with a leak in front of Burnt Park. And when we got in there, the service line was really a mess. And so was I think the saddle was okay, but we ended up replacing that too. But anyway, I think because of that condition, we're suspecting that maybe the same thing is happening here and that it's actually just surfacing at the point where the cement is kind of porous along that kind of line here. But I don't know, and we won't know until we get in there and see what's happening.
Is that something that we can do, or is that a Piazza thing because it's?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a Piazza thing because it's in the road. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, we could invest in all of that. I just obviously now we don't. We're spread too thin to even do that. So I think, yeah, right now it would be a Piazza job. You are familiar with this, but we've had more leaks associated with the back coagulation wall. This is just an example of what we were dealing with. I guess that I thought it was a video, but I guess I imported an image. Sorry. And this is the fix, same day. Yay. But again, it's just pointing to, I mean, you get a theme here where like every other month, I basically tell you that the coagulation wall was leaking. So it just kind of rises to, we need to deal with this probably in a more concerted 5-year CIP. A quick update on the wells project. Those are, plodding along. This is Evan doing some work associated with the treatment facility, basically putting up a wall where we can affix equipment that will be important for the treatment. So I don't know if you remember, but this one actually has, because the Division of Drinking Water was kind of scrutinizing the fact that the well is at a green recycling facility and was more concerned with, essentially ensuring that the water, the potable water is safe. They wanted us to do not only a chlorination treatment, but also a UV treatment. So in part, this is basically to affix that UV equipment. The 31 Wharf Well project, basically, I mean, we continue to procure materials for it. We continue to work on it. One of the things we're looking at is actually doing the work associated with connecting the treated line, right? This is basically, there'll be a small treatment facility up on the hill there. And ultimately, though, that treated line will come down and connect to our main on Wharf. We are considering actually doing that at the same time that Piazza is mobilized for that work. So basically, if you look at the things that we've done, it's basically anything we can essentially get permission to do from the BCLT and Habitat without interfering with their project. So that was putting in the pump up in the well, and I'd also like us, we're effectively probably very likely to do the line up to and basically have it terminate so that it's all ready to go. Because like we were just saying, that's all work. There's all the paving and all of that associated with that portion of the project anyways that we would have to have Piazza do. That's actually similar to resource recovery. Essentially, we'll do the trenching and all of that of the treated line, but that's all in Mesa Park, which is, gravel, which we can do in-house until we get to the road. We need to go across the road, then we'll bring Piazza in to do that last portion that's in the road.
Will that all be coordinated with the contractor for the 31 Wharf project?
Yeah, not that, so that these kinds of things we've been doing independently, but all of the other portions, yes, and we're really kind of we're beholden to their schedule right now. So I mean, I'll just put this out there. I might have to call a special meeting because there's some complexity about that. I don't want to talk about all of that yet. But there is some complexity there because we also have our grant deadline, which is the two are not, at least at this point, looking like they're aligning very well.
Yeah, I just mean like, sometimes you put a line in and the other contractor doesn't know about it and then they dig it up.
Oh, yeah. So we have a lot of meetings, with them, and all of our drawings are on their plans and everything, yeah. Yeah, no, it's not the planning of the project, it's basically the actual construction that is complicated in terms of aligning our two schedules. Then you've probably seen that there was some ditch digging that Dawn did along the treatment pond isolation ditch. Basically, this is the plans for that ditch. And it was helpful to look back at these and look at, get a lot of, once the rains start, we get a lot of pooling of water at the Mesa Road overlook intersection. And that's really in part because over the years and with some work that the mosquito folks did, that really got dredged too deeply over there. And basically we were looking back at the plans and just ensuring that the original specs that are associated with those plans are actually what we're dealing with. So obviously the ditch itself needed to be dredged, and that's what all of this was, but there's also further work to just ensure that we're following the grade. Basically, the design of the facility is that the high point is supposed to be at overlook in Mesa, and then you kind of drain from either direction from there. And so, we're just kind of looking into this and getting that more in order. Also, the idea is basically getting, we have some form of this, but we don't have a really good operational manual in terms of like maintenance of the facility according to the original specs and how we maintain like this kind of thing. So just kind of getting that more well fleshed out and then just kind of getting it on a regular maintenance schedule, I think is important. So that's one thing we're working on. As you guys know, we put in these monitoring wells. We've had our two first sampling events. That sampling is going into a report that West Yost is helping us prepare. That will be fed to the regulators at the Regional Water Quality Control Board. I hate the acronym. And they will then look at that and decide whether we need to install more wells or if that's sufficient. So this is all part of the augmented monitoring that is, a single portion of the new tech order where we need to like basically up our game in our treatment facility.
This is monitoring wells to test the water that is ultimately gonna be used by the resource recovery well.
No, sorry, I should have said that. So this is basically, these are groundwater monitoring wells. They are strictly associated with our sewer pond system. So basically they are, if you look at what we originally had and what, I mean, presumably was originally permitted, was 2 groundwater wells that were downstream of the treatment facility. So the idea was that you would, you know, obviously if say the clay line pool, you know, was leaking, that would start to infiltrate into the groundwater. And then when you measured your sample, you would see, oh no, we're seeing signatures of wastewater in the groundwater. That's not ideal. Also, obviously, our treatment facility is a natural treatment. So even the spraying, if that were, you know, if that process weren't happening efficiently, you could have potentially, you know, impact groundwater quality through that. Basically, you can't impact groundwater quality. There's people that have potable wells near there. So this is all part of the program to monitor our impacts on groundwater. So effectively what happened was we were hoping that we would just be like adding to the 2 wells that are there. This was a while ago, but basically we discovered that the seals were broken. They were just really old. We had to decommission them. So we decommissioned those. We basically put 2 to replace those. And then you'll probably see up right at the Mesa, the one, like the area that I was just talking about, Mesa Overlook, there's a new one there, and that is upstream, which effectively measures baseline. So now we have a data point that tells you what does groundwater kind of look like outside of our control just coming into our facility. Obviously, like some of the signatures you're looking for are just like E. coli and stuff like that. Well, there's cows right there, right? So we're not expecting that there's no, like, you know, the groundwater necessarily is pristine coming into the facility. So anyway, so that's the type of thing that the report will effectively look at and collect that data. We have to do that anyway as part of our monthly reporting. But this is basically to augment that program.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, just turning to the Ocean Protection Council grant. So this was all kind of miscellaneous before, but now we had our kickoff meeting and there's work that is directly impacting our operations, which is why it's now appearing in our operations. So as I was saying, Andrew and I had been preparing these maps of our treatment, our collection system. And that was in part because we wanted to do that anyways, but also this is being fed to the subcontractor so that they can use this map and then go around and CCTV the entire collection system. That's happening tomorrow and the next day. So this is the very, you know, kind of one of the first tasks associated with that grant. So anyways, I'm very excited that this work is starting in earnest.
And is the CCTV work just to assess condition?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. And then some of that will basically feed into flows and loads analysis, I believe. But ultimately, this is just to kind of point out, yeah, the conditions of that. So this first portion is, like I said, all around the gravity collection system. And then in December, we'll have assessment of the pump and the force main and all that. And then ultimately too, there'll be work assessing the treatment facility itself. I mean, that's the big portion of it that really is, you know, overlapping with the tech order. So there's just some weirdness about how the regulatory bodies kind of oversee our facility. And some systems, it makes more sense because they're so big that there's really 2 districts, like one part of the sanitary sewer district is all around maintaining the collection system and everything out in the field, and then you'll have like a standard treatment plant where, you know, that's all, you know, and even if, you know, even on the water system it's similar, right? It's basically like the guys get certified for effectively doing all of the work out in the field, but also separately certified for treating the water or, you know, maintaining the treatment plant. So there's really this bifurcation. So whenever I say like the tech order, that, and what I was just talking about, that those monitoring wells and all of that, that is all honed in on our treatment facility. Not, it doesn't really care about the collection system so much, except that, you know, obviously the two interplay. So some of the things are like, hey, make sure that you're at capacity. And by the way, capacity is going to be dictated by ensuring that, you know, your collection system is looking good, because obviously if it's just getting inundated with seawater, then you'll have problems at your treatment facility. So anyway, miscellaneous updates. You guys are familiar with this, but basically, not only 42, I don't know why I said only, we have a whopping 42.
Yeah.
Whopping 42 whopping 42 new participants. It was 28 last month, so we're not in that exponential phase anymore, Kevin. But anyway, I think we're looking good. Then just to, this came up, I think, last meeting, but just to let you guys know, Belle and I met with folks from the Bolinas Community Center to just essentially ensure that we're coordinating with them around, you know, beach pickup. I told you guys last meeting, or reminded you, that part of the negotiations for the franchise, you know, as the franchisee holder for Recology, we basically negotiated that Recology needs to, like, free of charge, deal with the garbage at Wharf and Brighton. So we just want to make sure we're, you know, essentially designing building structures that are going to be amenable to them actually servicing them. And then serendipitously, I kind of been contacted by the folks that are doing the seawall restoration on Brighton, and like the kind of beautification project associated with that. So that's like this kind of garden and all of this stuff that's happening right at the Brighton entrance, you know, where there's that kind of platform above, next to like Tolucci's. Okay, yeah. Small town.
Tolucci side of the.
Yeah, well, all of it. It actually expands. It's like a whole kind of revamping of that whole area. But as you guys are familiar with, the garbages are over on the other side. That, you know, anyways, those plans were shared with me, and it was good to realize, like, uh-oh, somebody else is working on this, and we want to make sure that they know, because obviously they were, you know, putting the garbages in some place that didn't make sense. So anyways, we're, you know, there's a lot of kind of coordination to work this all out. But basically it is happening, and we have a site visit. I'm hoping that somebody from Recology can actually join us for that meeting, so that we can, you know, make sure we're building things that, or planning to build things that will be serviceable.
Georgia, how does that coordinate with the whole permitting the house across from the Tolucci house was doing? I mean, is this?
That's them,
That's them?
them leading this charge. Yeah. So, you know,
So have they been?
yeah,
able
so
to make some.
yeah,
moves with
they-
the Coastal Commission? Is it-
yes, that project was appealed. They lost, the Coastal Commission lost that appeal.
Okay.
So
I
that
wasn't
moved
sure
forward.
where
Mhm.
it
Yeah,
was.
so that's why this is all
So this is
happening.
moving along. So
Mhm.
are they still working? Under
That's
that
why-
whole set of plans I mean, we've had a lot of conversations about that.
Yes, I don't
Like,
know
years
exactly what, you know, and I'm being contacted by the lawyer, so I'm not sure how much I'm
Yeah, I'm
supposed
not trying to ask.
yeah, but basically, you know, effectively, because we own part of that property, we were a co-defendant or
Right.
whatever on that whole legal case. We are still being kept in the loop on all of this. But yes, that all moved forward. The project has been approved, and now this further design and all of that is still in the pipeline. I'm not exactly sure, you know, how these designs that get fed into that approval process. Like, I'm not
Okay,
fully.
yeah, a lot of those designs were coming through us for quite a while because we were a co-applicant.
Okay, and were they primarily focused on the seawall itself, though?
That was a big piece of it, and they were
Okay.
talking also to the fire department, because a big part of their.
Mhm.
The reason for fixing it was that the fire department couldn't get through with a stretcher easily the way it is now. Obviously, it's pretty
Mhm.
messed up.
Mhm.
So they were in consultation with the fire department, with us,
Mhm.
making sure that we all agreed that what they were proposing met the needs of the community.
Yeah. Yeah, so all of those portions are in these plans, and I'm guessing those look very similar to stuff that you've seen. This is more like the beautification on the other side, because basically it's like these entire improvement of the whole kind of beach entrance. Anyway, so that's
Question on this,
Yeah.
are you is the plan that there'll be bigger capacity for trash there, like a dumpster or something?
yeah, we're not exactly sure yet, but basically what we negotiated was essentially kind of maintenance of the status quo at Brighton. So maintaining, I think it's like 3 garbage cans and 3
Okay.
recycling bins, and augmenting what's happening at Wharf so that there would be 2 garbage cans and 2 recycling bins over
So
there.
they're not planning to put in a full-size dumpster?
Well, I think that what we were talking about in our meetings with Bolinas Community Center is whether that might make more sense. Part of it is kind of looking to see what Recology services in Stinson. And I wasn't aware that basically there are large garbage, and some of this is this, there's obviously different jurisdictions, like the state beach over there versus county and stuff like that. So just making sure what I've heard is actually accurate, but that Recology may serve some of the dumpsters over there, and whether that would make more sense at Brighton, I don't know, but
Just as I'm remembering historically, Jack, you may remember this too, that there was at one time a push to put dumpsters there, and there was a dumpster at the end of Brighton. And then people just started putting their garbage in it, and then there was a big rat problem there, and the rat
Mhm.
problem made a lot of hysteria. And so the dumpsters were removed, so
Okay.
just to throw that out, that
Yeah.
there had been historically
okay.
a situation.
Yeah, I mean, what we were at this point envisioning is more just, like a physical structure that can hold just, your kind of typical recycling and garbage bins. And that's what we'd negotiated. And then final update, perfect timing. Kristen.
Sorry, I
Um,
didn't want to get in.
oh, no,
You line.
basically, I just reached out to Chief Krakauer to see if he'd be interested. This is, of course, sometimes I'm preparing the meeting and I'm like, oops, I forgot this is something you guys asked me to do. But this was around county road maintenance. And the letter that Bob Hunter brought forward last time. And you guys had asked me to reach out to the fire department to see if they would be interested in submitting like a joint letter with us. So I just reached out to George, reminded that I was supposed to do that. Haven't heard back from him yet. And then also I'm in contact with George and in different capacity with Department of Public Works. So figuring out if it makes sense for us to also bring up this issue of roads, but I'll let you know how that all goes later. Any?
All right, that concludes all of item 8 then, is that right?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Is anything happening with this building and?
Um,
I'm afraid it's gonna fall in on top of you guys someday.
Oh, well then you should be afraid for yourself too. Yeah. We are still doing work. We've done actually quite a bit of work related to the lab building to just upgrade some like nuts and bolts over there in anticipation of revamping our building committee and getting that going. We're almost at the stage now that makes sense to schedule one of those meetings, which is great news. And yeah, the idea is basically we would rehab that facility and then move over there.
Okay, I was sure that something was happening, but I just.
Yeah, we're just basically getting some plumbing and stuff in working order over there so that it was not in the best condition. So, but yes, we're happy that that's moving forward.
Lady, so having taken item 8 first, I'm not gonna go back up to the top of the agenda, which begins with action items. I'm only gonna call the ones that have something on them. so that will be number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Contracted work, related resolutions and approvals, and it is resolution 746.
Yep.
There's an emergency, authorizes Piazza Construction to repair the booster pump pipeline.
Yeah, so this is more almost a, what do you call that? Like retroactive. We already did this, but this is just essentially explaining why we didn't go out for a full bid and declaring the emergency and all that.
Oh, okay.
So if you guys want to, it's pretty, I mean, I included their proposal so you can see what the work entailed. But this is pretty boilerplate. If you guys have any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, we'll put it up for a
Anybody
vote.
have we do have a copy of their proposal. We know how much it is, so is there any question about any of Piazza's?
Yeah, and just to be clear, they've already done the work and it was very close to the
The
quoted
amount
amount.
that they
Yeah.
did, I'm good. Thank-
So was it a T&M when they say labor? Okay, I'm assuming that was time and materials,
Yeah,
and then
Um,
they billed against that.
Do we have an exact amount from them or for the job, or are we just using the number that they presented?
well, I mean, this is a little bit weird, but the way I wrote the resolution is effectively this is the quoted amount because that's often how we
Uh-huh.
do this.
Right,
I think it was like 49,200 or something, so very, very close.
any other questions about their amount?
So I have a quick question.
Yeah, I mean, sorry,
Go ahead.
to finish
keep
on
going.
that, I mean, I think I would still. At least want them to break out, like, this is the time and materials for her labor and whatever.
Yeah, so the billing itself breaks down everything like their equipment they used and all of that.
Uh-huh.
So I can share that with you, Kirsten, and get
No, this is more just
generally.
as you're doing this,
Okay.
yeah, I don't need to see the backup, but
Okay.
typically when I see, for me, this is a rough order of magnitude proposal with some big numbers, and I would wanna just say, okay, well, how many labor guys, how many hours, what's their hourly rate, how did you get to 25K?
Yeah, and so
Yeah,
all
yeah,
of that
yeah.
is basically broken down in the billing itself,
Okay.
whether I don't know, I mean, I would, yeah, lean on you in terms of, is this something that I should push on to begin with? To
Yes.
show that kind of
Yes.
detailed breakdown. Obviously, for a bidded project, we see all of that, but
Yeah.
for these emergency,
Well, and I know we talked about maybe revisiting, talking with them moving forward,
Mhm.
what are those rates, or could we get something more fixed? Like, it's
Mhm.
like so I'm happy, we don't have to take up the whole
Yeah.
board time, but, those are my questions when I saw this. It's
Okay.
just-
Kevin, did you have a question?
Yeah, just wanted to confirm what we're actually approving here with this resolution. This is just for phase 1. Lower down, it talks about phase 2, but that will be coming down the pipes later, is that right? So we're just approving phase 1, the $49,000 estimate.
yeah, exactly. I was just bringing some context in. This is not the be all end all. So if
Yeah.
when I bring this back for more of this emergency repair,
Okay.
you guys won't be shocked.
And
Making
so,
it very clear that the bypass is still above ground. There's still that service line work that I was talking about that needs to be done. So waiting to get a quote on that next phase.
okay. Can the operators repair the work that's been done if there should be a problem, or with like the above ground? I know the 6-inch stuff was hard to deal with. At least that's what I remember you telling us. Now that we've got a 3-inch line, should something go wrong, would that be a Piazza thing, or?
Oh, you mean the line itself?
Temporary.
No, I mean, the nice thing about the booster line is that we really can deal with it ourselves. That pipe was a nightmare because of the nature of it, because there were no clamps that fit it. We had to
Right.
special order clamps, and then there was just like, yeah, you had to do this like crazy like plastic soldering, or I don't even know what you call that. But
Okay.
anyway.
Great, that's good, so that's progress.
But I mean, ideally, we also don't have to deal with this line so
course,
much.
yeah.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, just being above ground, I'm worried that if a car were to run over there, car go off
Yeah.
the road, how far off the road is it? Is it? right off
It's
that
a
road?
ways away,
Ways
yeah,
away.
and it's also like up on the embankment, it'd be hard,
Okay,
but
great.
but yeah, there's definitely an incentive to get it buried.
Yeah.
But it is nice because yeah, all of those transmission lines are in dirt that we can deal with. And like you saw in that thing, Sean's getting really good at dealing with the booster line. Yeah, so it's nice to not have lines that are in county right away, but
Okay, and then one more quick question. Do you know how long this temporary fix will be in place? Do we have a timeline for the?
for how long the before we go to phase two,
Yeah,
I think we're hoping to do it
Soon?
soon. I
Okay.
mean, I really do think it's important to characterize this as all part of this emergency repair. If we're delaying it a year, then we should actually go out to bid for that project, which is not what I want to do. I want to get it done. It needs to get done.
Okay,
We need to, yeah, deal with it all
Gotta
now.
meet the weather too, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Also, exactly.
Can I ask a quick question?
Mm.
One of the whereases in this resolution talks about being exempt from CEQA. Is that a standard thing that we add or
Yeah.
to add?
Yes, we always add that to these emergency declarations. So I mean, yeah.
I think it's good. Just wondering.
Yeah, as I mean, usually they fall, I mean, if you look at the specific exemption, it's because of the utility aspect of it. I don't, I mean, yeah, anyway, I think sometimes I've seen Jennifer do them as two different things. And sometimes I think if it's a smaller project, she'll do it as one thing. So anyways, but these emergency declarations always have that, hey, we're doing emergency utility work, therefore it's CEQA exempt.
All right, and any other questions or comments? Otherwise, can I get a motion to approve resolution 746?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 0. Moving on to item 5. This is board to consider an increase in the director's monthly stipend. So based on the way Donald Trump does things, I think we're looking for 230 million divided by 5.
I think we should add a bulb.
In gold.
All the plumbing at
the
labs in gold.
So what's the background on this item being on our agenda?
Yeah, so you guys have talked about this several times. This is kind of like the final thing that was coming before you. That's also why we included some recent minutes to just kind of jog your memory about why you're talking about this.
Okay.
So that's that second portion where we effectively looked at what other districts around. Well, you could kind of look at what other water districts do. We included that information. We shared that with you like in March or something. It was a while ago. And then we also brought the context of their the other boards in town do not receive stipends. The kind of nature of water districts around here is that Inverness and Muir Beach do not receive stipends. Stinson does. As I don't know a time when you guys didn't receive a stipend, but the last time it was increased was in 2006. And it's basically stayed at that 250 per month since then. So that's the context. And yeah, that brings me to the memo. If you guys don't, I mean, I don't know the best way to do this.
You might not be able to answer this, but sorry, quick question. Because it doubled in 2006.
Sorry.
That's my favorite.
Debbie Downer question. Do we know when, I mean, because that was a pretty significant increase in 2006, I'm just curious.
What
What,
brought it on?
well, or no, maybe what was, previous, you know, when did it arrive at 125? I guess is the question.
Oh, I don't know.
Can you remember when you were on the board?
I think we got $50 when I was on.
Well, you know, what was the year?
And what year were you on the
I
board?
was there in the 90s, the decade of the 90s.
Yeah, I started
Okay.
in like 91,
All right, so 91 to 2000, so that's like.
but it went up to 125 not too much, it might have even been, but that's my earliest number that I can remember.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then they talked for a long time about increasing it. It was a discussion for about 3 or 4 years before there was actually a vote.
Right.
So, the feeling was the reason, I'll tell you what the rationale was. Is that the other boards, like the school board and the fire board, are basically dealing with one specific issue and item. The school board runs the school, the fire board runs the fire district. But the BPUD was seen as a multitasking entity which addressed all of the other matters that come to town. That was the rationale and the argument for why this board should be compensated, even if the others aren't. Not, they shouldn't be, but that's why there was a feeling at that time. So I just tell you what the feeling was about why we were getting compensation.
Mhm.
And other than that, I don't really have any thoughts on the additional amount or whether we should at all or anything. I'd be interested to hear what the rest of the board says.
As I remember too, it went up because there was so much extra outside work done with the lawsuit. And it wasn't raised at that time, but then after that, when people were considering how much extra outside work had been
Yeah,
done, it seemed important.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just chime in. I mean, some of the things you guys have talked about in the previous meeting was around sort of the equity of basically if you pay people, you get different people that can join boards. Then if you don't pay people, you're basically selecting for folks that have the time to just volunteer their time. Anyways, not like you guys are really being fully compensated for your time, but just that is an important context. I think sometimes you just think like, oh, we shouldn't pay these people anything, but really, I think there's an equity lens around actually it's appropriate to pay. And I did just the memo itself, just talks about the impact on the annual budget, like effectively now we're kind of a ways into the 25-26 year. I think this is a good time to essentially pilot whatever you guys want to do, because I effectively budgeted an additional $5,000 this year towards that. And we can, obviously we could implement a program that you guys want and see, depending on how fixed it is, it could be, oh, we don't know exactly how much it's going to cost because we're paying per meeting or something like that. Or, oh, we're just going to up it and it's still going to be this fixed amount per month. I think we are at a good point to do whatever you guys want to try out now, considering that extra cushion.
So, yeah, let's go around the table. What do you say, Grace?
Just two initial thoughts. I think it makes sense to raise it, tie it to the CPI. I mean, I think that otherwise you're losing money every year. And having it go up essentially makes it stay the same.
Yeah.
Which that seems reasonable to me. And I have questions about the administrative simplicity part. I mean, I think that's an important thing to bear in mind. And in my thinking process, I'm balancing it out with the tremendous amount of work that I know the finance committee in particular has to do. The committees that I'm on work a lot every once in a while, and then not at all if all things are going well, which knock on wood, it's been like that for quite a while. So I do feel that there's, quite a lot of additional time that some committees take, and I think that you should be paid for that. And I'm wondering how we balance that out with the simplicity. I'm not sure that it's gonna be all that complicated to pay an extra
No.
per meeting. I mean, do you have a thought about?
No, and I mean, the memo goes into this, right? I mean, it was almost like at the end of it all, I was like, geez, should we just up it? It just seems so simple to do that. But there is kind of this idea that, to your point, is like you're not necessarily equally sharing the burden. And so some people are more involved than others. And sometimes that's self-driven, but sometimes like the finance committee, it's more like necessary. I do think it's a good opportunity to kind of like to Jenny's point, there's a history here of the BPUD board. We have a larger staff than at that point in time. There was a lot that was shouldered by the board members themselves. We are no longer in that same like point in time. And I think that there is some ways in which the board out of that vestige feels like it needs to be super involved in the finance committee and all of that. I think that some of that just comes out of like, oh, Lyndon was on the board, he was really well informed in finance, it made sense to lean on him. But I don't think that's the best way to really run the district, to be really like essentially using board members as crutches for effectively getting like what is really district business done. And obviously you have a finance committee around transparency and all of that in terms of like, hey, this is what's going on. But in terms of actually shouldering the work, I would like us like to kind of this is a good opportunity while we're looking at all of this to kind of get away from that. I know even on the operational side, you had folks that were, whatever, really informed, involved in sort of like, hey, let's make sure we're attending to this. But again, to me, you guys are a governance board and you should be at that higher level. And, that's to remind myself too. Obviously, it's very helpful to have like people that are experts in in contract work and stuff like that. But I don't necessarily think that we should really structure the stipend around like, oh, let's make sure we're really using the board as much as possible and compensating them for that. That just doesn't seem like really the appropriate role for a board at this point in time. Anyway, so that's kind of just another sort of thing to throw out there.
And I think to your point, maybe just using Lyndon as an example, my understanding is he had been retired at that time, right? And he did have expertise
Mhm.
that he was able to afford to the board and his time
Mhm.
to, and that was a passion project for him as
Yeah.
well. And so I think moving forward, just seeing the kind of the changing landscape of what's happening in Bolinas and who can volunteer, and who has the
Yes.
time to volunteer, who can afford to serve on a very rewarding board.
Mhm.
I would encourage,
Yeah.
incentivize,
So you have a number or a method in mind of how we would do that? Which I forgot to ask you too, like Stinson has this thing that says, not to exceed $200 for each day's attendance at meetings. So they actually compensate people per meeting that they're attending, and depending on what your committee is, one is a lot more than the other, or from month to month. Or we can just do it the way we do it, which is just a flat stipend for everybody, and you take your chances on your time commitments from one month to the next.
well, and I think we have to bookend what we had allowed in the budget, right? At
Or-
least for now.
Yeah, but we can make this effective July 1st too. I mean, it doesn't have to be effective immediately. Can be. But let me go back to you, because I never got to ask you that question.
I don't have a number in mind, but I'm interested in what Georgia is saying, that it might be time for us to separate out a little bit from the nuts and bolts, figuring things out, and leave that to the staff, since we've got great staff,
Yeah.
more of it than we used to, and not have board members have the necessity for board members to spend as much time as it's been
Okay,
necessary in the past.
but I guess there's basically two methods. One would be to
Flat fee or per meeting.
parse out the amount that you're paying based on.
Yeah, and what I kind of proposed here in this table, Jack, is sort of like a hybrid of the two.
Yeah.
So you'd have like a base level that's just like, you know, acknowledging that even if you're not attending a meeting, you're still looking at your email, you're still prepping for the regular meeting, you're still attending ideally the regular
You can
meeting.
still give comments and not necessarily be present to vote.
Yeah, exactly. So because I think you want to incentivize people, even if they're not going to be at the meeting, to still pay attention,
Yeah.
right, to what happened at the meeting and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's basically the same as what you guys receive now. So that's still effectively, when you work that all out, it's like $250 per month.
Okay, yeah.
Then on top of that, you have some amount that you're effectively getting for other meeting attendance. That's like, you know, and you're putting some guardrails on there.
Right.
Okay, X number of meetings per month, not to exceed X dollars in a year, like whatever you guys want to. I mean, I could flesh that out more if you guys don't want to vote on it now, or you guys could propose exactly what you want to do. And that's where I was saying, like, if you do want to approach this hybrid model where we're like, who knows how many meetings you really, you know, I think maybe we even in our mind forget how many meetings you guys end up attending. So we have now some budget flexibility to just test out that model, and we should be pretty close to the budgeted amount. You know, depending on, I mean, obviously if you guys want $1,000 per meeting, we're probably over budget, but yeah. So anyway, that's kind of what I was suggesting.
Mhm.
But I'm also open to the idea of, okay, you know, essentially just, you know, this is fine, it works fine. People come on and off of boards, I mean, sorry, of committees, you know, kind of all balances out in the end. And you would just get your flat rate, but it would just be increased. Like, I think that I am pretty agnostic about which is appropriate.
Okay, so do you have a number? or
Yeah, I have
method?
a couple of questions. One is the desire to, once you come onto the board and are assigned a committee, to stick with that committee versus a rotating
That's a good
committee. Yeah.
My desire, Sorry,
Yeah,
or
as the
what
general
your-
manager.
do I care about people going on and off, changing?
Yeah, I mean, would you say, okay, you serve, you know, you serve 4 years and you're one term, I'm gonna say. And we would expect if you're on the finance committee or the HR committee or building grounds, you know, a minimum of 2 years, and then we're gonna have a rotation. Or is the preference just you've been assigned to this committee, or you've accepted this committee and stick with it, even if you're 8 years?
I mean, I'd say that could be decided at the board level. Like, I don't necessarily need to tell you guys how you want to arrange your workload. I mean, I would say that it is helpful to have, you know, effective, yeah, I mean, effectively,
Yeah.
especially for the finance committee,
Yeah.
it's so detail oriented.
Yeah.
I mean, as you guys know, I mean, obviously I was in a very similar position to where you guys were, where I was learning this all from Jennifer. And I was like, this is very overwhelming. In a very short period of time, you have like a super steep learning curve.
Yeah,
And definitely my second time around, I was like, oh, okay, this makes way more sense. So I'm sure from the board perspective, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, from
Yeah, I
a
mean,
kind
I
of
think-
selfish standpoint, it's like it's very helpful to have committee members that are obviously helpful. It's not just about transparency, right?
Yeah.
And bringing this forward in a public meeting or whatever. It's also about being able to get your, you know, advice. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think for some of the committees, it really doesn't matter. The finance committee, there's just a lot of like, yeah, information that needs to be
Okay.
learned.
So the one reason I like your recommendation of this hybrid, is because it's not to exceed, right? So we could come under budget.
Mhm,
Whereas the other one is a fixed fee.
mhm,
So speaking from the finance committee, I like that as a strategy.
mhm.
The caveat being there, if we haven't currently had to track it, how much more time would that be?
I don't think it's gonna
for you
be
guys?
bad, but I mean, that's kind of where I'm like, we pilot it for the rest of this year and see, but it's just like, you know, to schedule. I mean, I think it also gives some formality around when you're paying. The one thing I think that I didn't, you know, Bella and I talked about is sort of like, you know, does this put me in a position where I'm like, oh, I don't want to burden you guys because it's like this isn't a real meeting. Like I don't want to essentially make kind of incentivize me not to reach out to you guys.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I do think there's value in being a little having more discretion about when do I lean on you. So I do think you know, there's a way in which actually having to administer and be a little more formal about that could actually be good for,
mhm,
you know, effectively.
yeah.
Yeah.
The tracking, you've got the minutes anyway for the committee meeting, so,
Hmm.
you know, you can just see what's there. I mean, that, the tracking doesn't seem like it would be that.
Do ad hoc-
For each committee.
Would ad hoc
so-
committees be?
I think they
Yeah.
are too. I mean, if it's I mean, I think that's where the guardrails come in. It's a formal meeting. We've, you know, met via Zoom or in person, and it's been at least a half an hour. Like that's where I'm saying it's hard because I think about, you know, it's also like the nature of particular board members. I will tend to like, you know, reach out to Kevin and say, hey, can you look this document over? For instance, for the recology, it's extremely helpful to have somebody like that, but is it appropriate? Like that's where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be reaching out to Kevin and asking him to look over this document, and I should really be reaching out to, you know, Belle or Annie or whatever. And so, you know, maybe it basically stifles a little bit of that kind of more informal
Mhm.
sort of like lean on folks to help out, but maybe that's actually a good thing in terms of a kind of more appropriate level of you know, board involvement in the
Yeah,
daily.
I certainly wouldn't want to squelch that.
No, I know it's that's where
Yeah.
it's like, you know, it is kind of, I mean, it's very kind of discretionary, right? It's
So
like where
one
it's like
thing
a,
I was gonna suggest and throw out there to consider is you could just have the monthly stipend, let's just call it 250 as ongoing. And then at the end of the year, say, okay, let's do an assessment, you know, you did X number of meetings and this would be, you know, the payout at whatever. End of year, end of fiscal year, whatever time that
True up.
is. True up, thank you.
Or we could do a monthly kind of time card thing, you know, where we say, oh, hey, I attended 2 meetings this month, so.
yeah, I mean, I think I'd prefer that. I feel like the
Ah.
end of the year true up might be complicated and somebody might be like, wait, I attended more meetings, you
Yeah.
know,
Okay,
Yeah.
no, that makes sense.
rather catch it earlier.
And I
Yeah.
do everything in the calendar schedule, so I'm
Yeah.
really thrilled that Bell is doing that for us.
Hmm.
All right, let me keep going around. What do you say, Andrew?
Well, I think that the CPI makes a lot of sense if we're gonna do like a, just like a flat monthly fee, something closer to that, like Grace said. I think the proposal or the suggested pilot, where it's 100 base monthly and then 150 for a board meeting and then 100 for other meetings is a little confusing. I think a meeting should be the same amount, and so I think of it, my time is majority is a board meeting, right? So I'm essentially getting $250 for all of the research and reading of the month, with all the emails about various things, which aren't just about water. And then I'm reading the agenda beforehand, and then I'm in a 3-hour meeting usually. So when you take like the hourly of that, it's really small amount. And so this to me makes the amount that I'm getting paid less. I think because you're like, if I'm missing a meeting, I'm still doing most of the things that, like if I miss a meeting, I'm still gonna do all the reading before the meeting, so I'm up to speed. So I would suggest at very minimum, we keep the 250 as like the baseline. And then we make every meeting one amount, whether it's 100 or 200 or 75. So you get 250, and then for this meeting attending, you get 100. And then if you were on a committee, you get 100. I think the Stinson model is a little bit too much for us right now, with a 200 every meeting up to 6. So I would be in proposal of something like that, or I would say we should just get a monthly amount and make that number bigger, whether it's like 350 or 400.
Okay, without parsing out number of meetings.
Yeah, we're not parsing out number of meetings.
Yeah. What do you say, Kevin?
But as somebody on the finance committee who's probably sat in on more meetings along with your.
Yeah, but
all the
I'm happy
members
to
of
not
our-
be on the finance
Okay.
committee.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but no,
But
But somebody's gonna have to
5
do it.
years later.
I'm just saying, somebody's gonna, two of us will be on the finance committee and.
Yeah.
Whether or not you decrease the number of meetings, for those finance committee members to join. Or whether it's another committee that all of a sudden has a bunch of meetings to attend, there's always gonna be an imbalance, so. I sort of feel like those, excuse me. Those meetings should be compensated, if you're doing a lot more, if you're carrying more of a load, then I think you should be compensated for that. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I would suggest that we actually pilot it this year. Because we can always make a decision later on, like, oh, that was annoying to track or whatever, but right now we're kind of just guessing what it's like. So basically implementing it, I think it's fine. I think the only question, I'd like you to all vote in on whether you feel like, as Andrew does, that, regardless of whether you make a regular meeting, should you be compensated for that? That would be helpful to know. Because at some level, if it's yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, what is the level of involvement if you're missing a meeting? That I think is the central point. If you're having to do as much work, then I think it makes sense to still get paid for it.
Yeah, I would encourage that if we're missing meetings, to at least provide you or the president with some feedback. I know that can't be voted on,
Mhm.
right? And we've talked about you've looked into the Brown Act and what might qualify and allow for a Zoom call,
Mhm.
and we could still speak, but maybe it's,
Yeah, I mean, this is a good time to remind folks that basically you can attend remotely and still vote with
Yeah.
emergency, extenuating circumstances. You can obviously still attend and not vote without emergency circumstances. So I don't think, again, and to me, it's not even about people being there. It's just, I think it's sort of like the bare minimum responsibility is, if you miss a meeting, you're watching the minutes, or you're sorry, watching the video. So it's just like, I
Yeah.
tend to agree with Andrew, like the sort of, this almost makes it look like, oh, you could not attend the meeting. Like, that's not, I think, an incentive structure we want to set up. Is basically your 250, and that includes your prepping for meetings and catching up on them if you weren't able to attend. That's sort of like the bare minimum. And then, yeah, whatever number you guys want to attach to that meeting. What I looked at was effectively, right now, our budget allows, like, again, this is kind of a guess because we'll see how many meetings you guys actually end up attending
Mhm.
outside of the regular meeting. But right now, I think the budget would allow for like $100 per meeting over, again, like 45 minutes or whatever you want to use that. I don't think that I'd say it would become a nightmare, and I think it would become kind of dysfunctional if I was, it was like time beyond actual formalized meetings.
Mhm.
Well, the problem with that is that, Kevin and I probably spent 4 to 6 hours on the Churchman, Cass Okender
Mhm.
matter meeting at
And-
least twice, plus talking to each other. We didn't keep track of our time, but it had to be 4 to 6 hours total easily.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I wanna have to start accounting or submitting things to the, office. Well, today we spoke for 2 hours and 15 minutes or something.
Yeah.
But those are, and they're not scheduled meetings, but they're the work of our committee, which
There
is.
were roads committee meetings, I mean, meeting on site was a roads committee.
It'd be a meeting, I suppose, yeah, but it wasn't agenda. In other words, there's all these little things that come up, and I know that Grace and I, a few years ago, had a personnel matter that came up, and we were the personnel committee, and we spent an inordinate amount of time with the matter that was shown up. And at some point, I don't know that we're ever really gonna get fully compensated for all that time.
Yeah.
It was just the bad luck of our committee is that came up, because then other years go by and everything goes smoothly and we don't have any. So
Mhm.
you almost have to look at it in the big picture, which is that sometimes the bad years kind of balance off with the good. And I'm just throwing that out there because those are considerations that we haven't really talked about as well.
Mhm.
I am more inclined to just go with a flat figure and just say, you know, you just. Roll the dice on what's gonna happen any particular year and.
Yeah,
But I am sympathetic to the one exception, I think, which is the finance committee. Because they have a
That's
regularly
predictable.
scheduled number of meetings that they have to attend.
Mhm.
And it's a process unlike our roads committee or personnel where we're really responding to issues.
Yeah.
The finance committee is not doing that. The finance committee is in fact anticipating the next year's business.
Mhm. Well, so maybe what we should do is list all of the committees from like, you know, least amount of work to most. And then we basically have this funding structure, this inverse funding structure. Incentive, you guys are all gonna be vying to be on the finance committee.
No, but I think we should all just get a flat amount, to be honest with you, but I do think there should be some consideration. For the finance committee, because I think that they, but the rest of us
Like a
have
bonus.
been, huh?
Like a bonus almost.
Yeah, you're not supposed to get bonuses when you're public employee, but it would just be
Well,
for.
additional stipend, but
Yeah.
additional work.
It
Yeah.
is additional, yeah.
One other thing I thought about, this is kind of related to this, but was, you know, I know that these meetings are difficult in terms of dinner and stuff like that. The other thing would be just as like effectively providing food before the meeting. I mean, I know I think about it in terms of the school board, that was something that was provided to us and it was really nice. But the structure there is different where we always have a closed session beforehand. So it lent itself to that, just like the logistics of it was much, you know, easier there. But I did want to get your feedback about whether that would be kind of, I mean, it's like sort of like an additional perk and also maybe means that you guys are not so concerned about, you know, a 3-hour meeting starting right before dinner.
Yeah.
Well, what should we do? Do you want to try to vote on something now? Should we think about it or,
I have one more comment to that.
yeah, please.
So if we have $15,000 a year for the directors and we budgeted 20. So 20 divided by what we would make monthly is only 333.
Okay,
But that doesn't even really allow all of us to have one board meeting and one additional meeting per month to stay in budget. So I don't know like if that's okay.
Wait, sorry, no, because we're a ways into the year. That's where I
I'm
was.
saying like in 1 year, 20,000.
No, I know. The way I was thinking about this budget right now and why we're like implementing it kind of late is basically this allows us to model this for the rest of the year.
Oh, it wouldn't be 20,000.
Well, I think that yeah, next year, if that's something you'd want to do,
I
then
see.
we would basically be upping the
Okay.
budget. Mhm.
Never mind.
all right.
And the
So-
finance committee's already met.
That's right.
So-
But-
They're coming up again soon, so what
Yeah.
should we do?
Couple more things.
Yeah,
Sorry, did I understand you correctly? Would you like to move the finance committee away from having so many meetings? Is that your goal? Or-
Yeah, my goal is to,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, and then I agree with Grace about the CPI, adjusting to the CPI.
Okay.
But I think if we did that, we would break the budget. If we were to bring our stipend up to 2025 levels, that would break the budget that you've created for this.
Oh, yeah, no, what I would suggest is,
Starting now.
yeah,
not
starting now.
Going back to 2006.
Yeah, no, what do you mean starting now? Oh,
Well,
so
So to
Yeah.
finish this year out, this financial.
Yes, you
year,
would start
and
to
then
do that.
next year.
Because you could imagine, like, if they had done that at the time, right, in 2006,
Yeah.
if maybe we wouldn't even have to be wasting our time right now to even
Yeah.
talk about this, right? So I think I agree that implementing, you know, it essentially, the future board
Yeah.
will appreciate that you guys apply to CPI because then you've had this exhaustive conversation about it.
Yeah.
And it's not like, okay, that money is now just losing value,
Yeah.
right? It's like, anyways, like you decided on a number for a good reason.
Mhm.
We should maintain that number going forward.
yeah. But if we were to, let's say, raise our rates now, from now going forward up to the 2025 rate using the CPI.
I don't think we're talking about that.
We're
We're
not
just
talking about doing
basically,
that.
yeah, no, I mean, what we're talking about is basically whatever you guys are.
Earning what we would be earning now with the CPI,
Mhm.
CPI increase doesn't sound right. It's consumer price, maybe the CPI increase.
Applying the same.
Applying the CPI, if we had applied it from 2006, this is what we should be making, $427 a month. So
Mhm.
we're not talking about starting out at 427, is
No.
that not the, okay,
no. We're taking the
Yeah.
number that we have now and deciding what to do with it, and how we compute the compensation going
Yeah,
forward.
and I think that that is an important data point to say you guys should up it. But it's not necessarily telling you need to up it to 427.
So one thing that we seem to agree on is that henceforth, there will be a CPI as part of the compensation package.
Yeah, I think so.
And then the other question is, well, how are we gonna compute it? Is it gonna be a flat amount and then that CPI is added, or are we making adjustments for increased time in meetings? Other things that you're doing.
I had one other comment just around like the finance committee. For me, what I have found a bit more challenging about that is this had to be in person, right? And so that's a bit of an additional ask versus could we do it on Zoom? For me, looking at financial documents, it's a lot easier to do on my individual screen that Georgia's able to run, you know, and you're in your own screen.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we're just basically constrained by the Brown Act because
Right.
of its standing committee nature. So
Mhm.
there's nothing we can really do around getting around that, except that we can, you know, set up. Because I agree, it's also something where actually the, like computer-based meeting is more efficient in that format.
Yeah,
But we basically would have to all be in here with computers.
right.
All right, so I wanna bring closure to this discussion on this item. So what should we do? We try to make a decision now? Do you wanna just think about it and maybe George, you come back with some kind of a different, a more concrete proposal, although yours is pretty concrete, the way it is.
I'm inclined to go with Georgia's recommendation and give it a shot.
So is that the base stipend of 100, the regular board meeting at 150, and other meetings at $100?
Well, I mean, we can change that around. We could say the basis remains at 250 and
Yeah.
the others are $50, whatever.
Well,
Yeah, I think I'd be inclined to suggest that we do what Andrew was saying, which is basically collapse those two rows into one thing. So it's basically the baseline of your, you know, stay on top of stuff and attend the meeting. That's 250, whether or not you actually are able to attend the meeting in a given month. So your baseline is 250,
Yeah,
and then we're looking at $100 for each meeting attended. I think what I don't know, I agree the complexity around like the roads committee and dealing with individual community members that are effectively reaching out to you. I mean, I think that you do need guardrails where essentially like I'm approving this meeting. You're not just like going off to the aqua conference and being like, hey, I went to the aqua conference.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know, but I think that's the point of the pilot. If it's just a nightmare to figure out, like, and to your point, things brew up on the personnel committee. Like that's another one that it's just like, but I think usually, I mean, the way that I would suggest we handle it is that you would get $100 per meeting, and then unfortunately it maxes out to like a couple meetings per month. And then beyond that, it's like you're not getting compensated, but that's, you know, it's better than it is now because you're not getting compensated at all.
So would the 250 include the board meeting, or would it be 250 board meeting is another amount and then other additional?
No, 250 includes the board
Okay, I
meeting.
think that's the way to go.
yeah,
For
all
now.
right,
For now.
what do you think? Does that sound?
Yep.
reasonable? All right, so then that's basically the proposal that's laid out in your memo, right?
Yeah, I'll just collapse that. It's just
Yeah.
basically,
The proposal would be 250 a month plus $100 for additional meetings up to 2 per month, you're saying,
Towards the 12 per year.
or 12 per year?
yeah, 12 meetings per year I think is better because then, you know, if you guys basically have a bunch of work all in one, you know, area, then
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
With,
And then can I suggest that what we would say here, just to make clear, because you know, per monthly board meeting attended or not attended. So, I mean, that's dorky, but at least it actually means that if you don't attend it, you still get the money.
Whether it's in person or via.
how about just base monthly stipend, 250?
Yeah.
Yeah, just make sure.
I'd strike that
Strike the
middle
board
line.
meeting, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
so it's a base
So
250
250.
plus 100 for additional meetings up to max, and an annual adjustment of the CPI.
I guess I still get into this same thing though, because basically we say for ongoing responsibilities such as monitoring email, communication with Visa, and attending the regular meeting or not attending the regular meeting. That's the point, is that basically you guys don't want, and I wouldn't recommend we have a system where effectively if you don't attend the meeting, you're not getting that baseline. That's
Do you
my,
even need to
I-
add the notes in there?
I think you just
No.
say for being a confirmed
for-
board member.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
an elected board
An
member,
elected board member.
yeah, basically.
or. We could, yeah, just.
So can I
Oops, you were
get a motion
appointed.
then to adopt the proposal for, are we calling this pilot compensation and give it a test run or?
Yeah.
I think so. I'd recommend that because like we said, we're also talking about the annual budget and stuff like that. And like we said, if we do this, we're likely to have to increase the budget next year.
Okay, so this would be a proposal for 25, 26 then. Right,
Which will
budget.
expire in June 26th, essentially.
Yeah, we'll have to actually review it earlier than that because of the
Right.
finance schedule, but
Okay.
Yeah, can I get a motion then to approve this proposal?
Make the motion to approve the proposal as amended.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, let's see how that goes.
I assume that it's, given that the CPI is applied in the new at each new fiscal year, do we need to put something to date around that?
no, it's just all of these different
Seems
budgetary lines, we
logical.
do that.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, there's a few things that we didn't do that for that I've already started to do as part of the budget, so this is kind of just conforming with that.
Does that happen January 1st or at the start of the fiscal year?
Start of the fiscal year.
All right, I'm going to go on to special reports or updates. Item 9, and it says no action requested. Am I just passing or are we?
Yeah, I can just update you on our proposal from urban forestry.
Okay,
So effectively I've met with Ray Moritz. Last time he had submitted this is all like a sort of convoluted history, so I'm just getting us to this point in time. But effectively, he submitted a proposal. You guys approved that proposal. It was a much larger proposal to look at trees on our land, on private land, ingress, egress. This was in concert with the fire department. Once you guys had approved that proposal, he actually rescinded the proposal due to liability issues. What we're trying to do is effectively get a defined list of hazardous trees that have been identified as hazardous as they relate to ingress egress. This is for the executive, the governor's order around being able to circumvent, I mean, in quotes, CEQA and coastal development permitting for tree removal. This was off the LA fires, right? So what the fire district has asked us, and they're effectively like the liaison with MWPA, right, is to have that list of trees. Because that, part of the liability issue was also like identifying trees on private lands and then not actually having the funds to remove them. So you could imagine that that would be a real issue if effectively we say, hey, can we assess a tree on your land? Oh, that one's dangerous. Actually, we don't have the funds to remove it. So that was part of the complexity. So this is really refocusing on this report that had already been prepared by Urban Forestry and Ray Moritz in 2023 that identified trees on our property and in the county right of way that are dangerous. That list already exists. Ultimately, when we feed that in to the fire department, and once they go through that, whatever that executive order permitting process looks like, MWPA has about $200,000 to do tree work. So I would really, effectively the proposal he gave me, Ray, for essentially reviewing his 2023 proposal, really limiting the scope because that was broader. It looked at, trees out here, trees at the tank. So it was like, hey, can you really look at this proposal? And then I don't know why. that keeps happening. Belle, are you?
Yeah, I don't know. It just says it's connecting to the cloud server, so I don't know what's happening either.
Probably something related to the Wi-Fi or something.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, it's actually super digitized. I don't know if the Wi-Fi is bad. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay, so sorry. So yeah, so the idea here is basically get this report to them. We already have more than probably $200,000 worth of tree work identified in the original 2023. It is a much cheaper proposal than the original one that was around $34,000. This is, less than 3,000. Effectively, I already approved that because it is below, procurement allowance for me to effectively approve. The fire district is on board for this approach, and Ray is working on the proposal as we speak. So all in all, I'm happy. I'm sure you guys have seen that PG&E subcontractors are doing work in there. So there's some real tree work that's getting done, and I'm hoping that we will be able to contribute to that by way of MWPA addressing the trees that we've identified in this report.
What about Terrace?
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I don't know
Are any
really.
of those trees,
Ours,
no, not ours, but,
county.
county? They certainly look like they're right next to the road.
I don't know. I mean, I know some of them are. I mean, I've been on emails. Rudy had pointed out like the tree that fell already to PG&E, so he's included me on some of those emails, and I'm kind of peripherally aware. Some of it has to do with that complexity of if trees are actually close to lines, which is a lot of the hazardous trees there because of how the power poles go through there. So ultimately, it's like not only is it PG&E's effective responsibility to deal with them, but like other people are not allowed to deal with them because they're too close to the power lines.
Mhm.
So I don't know how many of those trees qualify under those conditions, and it's really PG&E that needs to deal with them as opposed to like the private property owners or whatever.
Right, I was
Oh.
thinking in terms of ingress and egress, certainly that's.
Oh yeah, and I mean,
But I understand $200,000 doesn't go very far, so you've got, trying to split it between two roads. Even
Yeah.
whatever amount of that we'd get is.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, this is obviously George works directly with MWPA to manage those resources. My understanding is that that $200,000 is, is focused on zone 5 trees, but whether there's additional funds to focus on terrace or whether ultimately he would decide, hey, we should use some of that 200,000 towards these other trees, I don't know. But I don't think that I don't want to overcomplicate things, but remember that there's kind of multiple channels that MWPA is trying to get these permits through. So there's this through the executive order, which is really circumventing the coastal development permits in CEQA. And then there's this other avenue, which is kind of blanket applying for these permits across the coastal zone, so that the MWPA is like, okay, instead of each agency and private landowner having to go through a laborious process on their own, it's like, let's look at the coastal zone in in Marin County and define these areas and kind of get them permitted all in like batch. So that is another effort, and I've seen that map that George has shared with me in terms of those, and that zone at Terrace is identified.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway.
So previously, we were gonna split that 31,200 with someone else.
Yeah, with
Can we do that with this one too?
with this, I mean, we could, but I don't want to slow this down. And it's, so much less money. But yeah, that was with Department of Public Works. And I will be meeting soon, hopefully with DPW and the fire district, because obviously, just those trees that are on the other side of the road, a lot of those are in the county right of way.
Yeah.
So I think what we would ideally like to do is just get this flowing into MWPA's pipeline, but also suggests that, in terms of, the county's contribution to the permitting side of things is, hey, can you get similar assessment on the other side of the road for county trees to identify those, and then you can imagine both of those things are getting fed into MWPA's pipeline.
Thank you. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What about, the recommendation or the warning, I guess, that it's taking out some trees leaves a wind border that then puts in jeopardy some of the other trees and can cause more of a problem in terms of safety?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the idea here is that, um, experts can be thoughtful about the tree work that they're proposing, and they can consider the impact of removing trees on other trees. Obviously, I feel pretty strongly that for us to not do any work in the trees because we're worried that some work would ultimately make things worse just doesn't seem logical. But
Well, I don't mean you wouldn't do anything.
yeah,
I mean, there would have to be a future look, there'd have to be some asterisk or something that would indicate that we're aware that this is going to have repercussions as far as safety down the road, and we really need to not have this be it in terms of taking trees out.
oh, I think that this is still, a phased approach to more trees, getting more
That
trees.
would need to be clear, I guess is what I'm saying, is doing this work.
Yeah,
with a
I
very clear explanation that more will have to be done for safety.
Yeah, I think part of the liability thing that I started to get into and why people were effectively not wanting to work with us, though, is if you start to tell people, hey, can you identify which tree should be taken down now and which tree shouldn't be taken down, and they start to make those sorts of comments, they're going to be like, I don't want to tell you that this tree is safe and this one is not, they getting into that is very tricky. That's where I feel like you've identified these hazardous trees and limbs. We have resources to take them down. We're mitigating that impact, and you ultimately do it in a thoughtful way that considers, hey, how is this work going to impact other trees? But I think anyway, so that's essentially that's kind of where I've gotten to at this point in time. And it's not like I don't have ambitions to beyond this deal with more trees. Obviously, there's a lot more trees in there that need to come down.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna move on. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
One more, so when we looked at this previously, we were looking at 100-foot border along the road, so that has now been condensed really just to the trees alongside the road, it looks like from the maps, right?
Mhm.
And that's because of the $200,000 budget that we are dealing with? Is that-
No, I mean that has to do with the original 2023 proposal and what was asked of Ray. I think I mean, you see that he identifies some trees further in. So I will have to, understand better, there are some, they're not all roadside, right? He's also identified trees, a couple of trees that are further inland. And so what exactly went into that and why, but the way he contextualizes it in the report is basically I was asked to look at, roadside trees, and I was asked there, and then I was asked to look at this grove, and I was asked to look at that grove.
Mhm.
So but yeah, I can ask him more about it in terms of, preparing that.
I mean, it's a little hard to tell which trees he's talking about. I think maybe the dots are on the crowns, not the trunk, so I mean, it looks like some of these trees are on the Buell side of the road, but I think they're actually on our side of the road, so it's.
I think it's the right of way is in a really weird spot. So the survey is very strange. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think it's because the right of way is really funky there. And so the actual property boundaries don't align with the actual practical right of way. So if you look at the example at the base of Mesa Road, our property almost goes all the way into the intersection.
Okay.
But that's like, it's like the county right of way is practically defined. So even though, you know, essentially our property boundary goes there, like obviously if there was a tree growing up in the middle of the road, that would be, you know, their
Those
tree.
county lines aren't always accurate.
No, but this is from a survey that was done, a right of way survey.
Yeah.
Back then. So,
All right. Should we move on to the next item? Item 10, Beef Hut sign area at Mesa and Olima Benish Road. And we have a memo, about the use of signage and what constitutes district business. And the questions are, should we use the sign to promote online billing, for instance, or should it be reserved for urgent matters like droughts or conservation, things like that?
yeah, so I'm just kind of reminding you guys why this has come back. Effectively, you guys had sort of directed us, hey, let's just use it for urgent matters, but we didn't fully resolve the idea of like, hey, I mean, Kirsten had brought up like, why don't we put our online billing sign up there? So it's kind of getting some direction around, or direction from the board around what is the type of thing that you guys want up there. And then also in the interim of having been told that, we essentially get this request from John Borg in anticipation of the meeting, the post office celebration. And we didn't have enough time to even bring that forward to the board. So it just kind of highlighted this is kind of a silly thing to make everybody come before the board to, you know, effectively get something up there that really is in the interest of the community. So I don't know how you guys want us to manage this. We could either just, you guys could just entirely leave it up to us and it's our discretion to just decide these matters. You could delegate. One of the things I was saying is, you know, just the board president. That's really how we handled it. When we got the request from John, we said, hey, we think that this is appropriate use of it. Are you okay with that, Jack? And he said, sure. And then I basically just informed the board this decision has been made. So that's fine. It's just what we effectively put into practice this last month is not really what you guys were kind of telling us to do, where it was kind of more like, oh, if somebody asks, we could, you know, they could come before the board. I think the practicality of having a month between meetings means that that's just not use, you know, just not serving the community.
Yeah. And I think we should, so my view is that sign area should be restricted to matters of general interest to the community with some sense of urgency or timeliness rather than just purely informational. That's just my view. It's right there. Everybody sees it as we go by. And I think that with a lot of signage, when things are up there for a long time, you start to look past them because you've seen it so many times, you just start seeing it. So I really liked it when we used it for drought information. And that's the kind of subject matter for me that I think we should use it for. And generally just give the authority to the staff to decide what it ought to be. But if we give Georgia guidance on, listen, this is the kind of signage that should work and the rest of it, no, then she'll pretty much, and then if there's a problem, we can still deal with it. But let me hear what everybody else has to say about that. What do you think, Kevin?
I agree that having something up for too long, people ignore it and
Yeah.
pass it, so I like the idea of changing it up. I don't like seeing the bare posts, I would like to see something rather than nothing. I had some ideas on little things, almost using it like an extension of our newsletter, the pipeline. When's the last time you pumped out your septic tank, question mark? Could be 1 month, another month could be online billing, trying to recruit people to go online and sign up. Another one, and this is coming up next in our discussion, was something like, if you have a smart meter, smart water detection device such as a Flume, we want to hear from you, call into the office. So almost like trying to engage the public a little bit, not necessarily with emergency, drought information, but kind of also more day-to-day stuff.
So you see it more as a way of us communicating things to the community on ongoing basis.
Potentially, if we want to, but I'm fine leaving it up to the discretion of the staff and, yeah.
But that kind of is a broader use than just emergencies or certain limited subjects.
Yeah, I mean, we're not under emergency situations very often, so I'd rather see it used for something rather than.
Nothing,
Yeah.
okay, what do you say, Andrew?
First of all, I think we should clean it up. There's like 2 posts that are different heights.
Yeah, that
It's,
really
like
bugs me.
white crop, I mean, it looks really unprofessional.
Okay,
I'm curious about the,
And sorry, just to let you know, we were actually gonna just take it down.
yeah, I mean. I'm
So
fine with
that's,
that too.
you know, effectively what we were waiting for the post office thing to happen.
Yeah,
You take
But-
everything down.
Sorry, at least the crossbars,
Okay.
okay.
because it's basically like telling people, please put something up here.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
So the post office party thing, how does that work? How did that decision happen?
he asked if we could put something up there and
And we were actively working on it in BPUD. We were a part
Yeah,
of,
but we haven't really been for a while, you know?
but at that time, or no,
Oh, so
it
it's
was
like,
after.
wasn't this like John Borg asked you like very recently to put something up?
Yeah.
That's
That's talking about-
oh, the party, yeah.
You're talking about the countdown meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
no, sorry,
No,
you're talking about the
not
party,
I'm
right,
just talking
Andrew?
about the-
I'm talking about the party.
You're right.
Yeah. So what happens is John asked us, we and we said you could come before the board and request it. This is something that's been on,
Yeah.
And then effectively he's like, well, that's too late. The party, this is why this item is on here.
Yeah,
Because essentially that's just, we don't have enough time when somebody's like, 3 weeks in advance, I'm ready to, do some event or something. Then we don't have necessarily time usually to bring it before the board.
but
So then we asked Jack, hey, we don't have time to do this. How do you feel about this? And he said, I'm, supportive. So then we essentially told John, yes, you can put that up there. And then I wrote an email to all of you letting you guys know, hey, this happened in this way because of that.
It seemed to fall in the category of information for the general community, but,
I guess,
I don't know if it should be that broad though.
I guess my problem is like, there are communities historically and now that like have very unified visions. That
Yeah.
are like really messed up. Like, what if we all agreed that the KKK was like something to support and advertise? Like, the only reason that the post office thing is okay is because like there's this very collective agreement that it works.
Exactly,
But like objectively, it's totally discretionary
yeah,
and it has nothing to do with the BPUD.
no, you're
We're a
right.
civic institution though.
Yeah, we're
We're not a civic institution, we're a utility district.
That's the issue.
Yeah, but we have no charter
We're quasi.
to
But
do.
but we
other
function
things.
that way though.
Yeah, but like that's where like these loopholes and these openings can
No,
happen. for us.
you're right, that's why we're talking about it.
And so there's also like, who puts the sign up, it's like, we have trees that have fallen on people. We're working on this like open public case about dangerous trees. And
Yeah.
suddenly, like, we're like, oh yeah, if you can get your crew to put up a sign, when
Uh-huh.
something happens.
So what's your recommendation?
My recommendation is that the only thing that thing gets used for is BPUD matters. And the board votes on it.
And the board votes.
Yeah.
Okay. We're
I agree
talking,
with that, yeah, no,
You like-
I
you
know
like
what
that
we're talking
proposal?
about. Yeah. I mean, I think the reason that board exists is because we were going through a drought and it was an opportunity to inform people as like a fire hazard. This is, a gauge of where we're at, and it became more informational in terms of the great work, and I think it was a fantastic message and incentivizing people to, keep going, reduce your water use, look how well you're doing.
Yeah.
So my inclination is to, A, keep it within BPUD messaging, and B, probably limit it to what are major messaging issues. Like, I don't wanna drive by that board because, oh, it's a BPUD message and, I have to really recognize why it's any different than last month's message. I'd rather it just jump out at me. It's like, this is important, we need you to pay attention. Otherwise, I think we just,
Or don't put it up there.
you either
Have a
take it
reason,
down
yeah.
or you make a policy like, no, Smileys, you can't put your band
Uh,
night
uh,
message. out
Right.
there.
What do you say, Grace?
Yeah, I'm taking it a little further, I guess I'd like it down until we're using it for a drought. The only thing I can think of is maybe the fire department with their no fireworks, no fires at 4th of July, I'd be okay with that. Cause that's a safety thing, but I don't really like the way it looks blank, I think it calls for people to put up political stuff and all kinds of other stuff, that there's other places in town for that to go. You know, down by the nursery is where everybody puts that stuff up, and I don't wanna start, I mean, I'm not trying to gather trouble, but everybody trying to put their sign higher up on the tree, you know, so
Yeah.
that nobody can take it down. I don't want that to happen at that corner.
Yeah,
Number one, I think at that corner, there's people crossing, there's kids on bikes. It's like, I don't want anything visually complicated.
Mhm.
Unless we're trying to tell people to flipping not use any water.
yeah,
If we have another drought, I wanna have that sign go right back up, but I just take the whole thing down, or, you know, leave the uprights so that you could re-erect it fairly easily. I don't know if that's possible,
yeah.
but, I think it's kind of asking, it's a void asking to be filled, and I don't know that
Yeah,
that's what I want. Yeah,
Yeah. So in other words, just restricted use to almost emergency vehicle stuff, really.
I think so. I mean, that would be my preference, particularly because of where it is, and I think that it's
Yeah.
visually,
Yeah.
I'm persuaded.
a little hazardous.
Taking any
What do you-
comments from the public?
Excuse me?
I'm taking comments from the public.
Yeah,
I'll give you some feedback, and that is, I think would be really important to put the water use up there and keep it updated, because I think that's important for people to know, starting April and going to October or
Mhm.
whatever, into the rains, because that is important. Also, it would be really great if you're having tree work done, to have something up there that says there's gonna be tree work done here. And not to have a road closure sign that has so much information on it that you wreck by the time you see
Mhm.
all of that information of when it's gonna be closed. the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
So things like that, I think are really important. But I really feel as though it's important for us as a community to know what Georgie says, not everything she says at these meetings, but the important thing about where we stand with our water. And I think that would be really good to have there. And then if you can add something onto it, if there's a specific thing coming up, like the road will be closed.
so are you talking more like an ongoing sign then?
Well, sure, because, well, if you do it half the year, or if you do April to October,
Yeah,
where it's hot, or just year round, so we know where we stand, or if we're gonna have a flood.
So-
Because it could be that, you know, you have some other.
Right.
But I don't think you need to take it down. I think it's important that.
okay.
that-
And so,
that's-
so let me go back and summarize it, but Andrew and Grace, I think you guys are saying actually that except for situations where there's a drought or something like that, there doesn't need to be a sign there. The kind of information that Jenny wants to convey is conveyed in some other way, but not on a sign at that corner. Is that what you're saying?
I think that based on where we are staff wise and time wise, that to just do daily usage every day, even when we're not in a drought, is a little bit too much.
I
Okay.
think you should put it to, excuse me,
All
for,
right, Jenny, I heard you, Jenny.
I mean,
But
but
it's
it's
like-
a community, I think it's a community issue, because that is a community piece of corner.
Okay, I hear you. So what do you think in response to what she's,
I hear what you're saying, Jenny. I guess one concern that I would have is the years, luckily, we have been doing pretty well with water even throughout the summer. I would hate to encourage people to use more. I think almost that there's something about not having the information that makes you look around at how dry it is and feel like conserving. Whereas if you saw that we were actually doing pretty okay, you'd water your lawn or whatever. I can imagine that happening, and I prefer to save it for a more emergency situation.
okay, What do you say?
Yeah, I tend to agree with what you said. And I think that there are many platforms for messaging, whether it's BPUD's message or whether it's, somebody else wanting to use our message. And again, I just keep thinking about like when there's a fire hazard, I really look, is that red, yellow, green? As stayed format, right? So that's why I'm a little bit apprehensive of it being just an informational board rather than we have a water issue or we need to alert you to something and it goes up and it has the same format that it's always had.
So Kevin, now you've heard these other folks say you have a different, are you persuaded at all, limiting that sign space or?
Yeah, I can see the argument, but it's a chance to reach people with messaging. I don't know how many people read the pipeline, so another chance to reach people.
Yeah,
So seems like a wasted opportunity, but I'll go with the flow if that's what people want.
okay,
Unless you want to say, go to BPUD's website, check out bpud.org for your water update.
so I think that the board's consensus is to, and do we agree that it's really up to the general manager then to decide when that sign is appropriate or needed? If we give her this direction that these are the uses that we, in other words, we're kind of making a policy on what the, then it's up to Georgia to decide. I think that we need to get a sign up because it's looking bad on the drought or some, whatever discretion you want to exercise.
I mean, if you guys are all in agreement, the discretion is pretty limited.
That's
It's
what I'm saying.
basically, oh, we're in a drought, we need to put our drought sign up. I mean, that's kind of what I've heard. Or there's, it's, the fire department has requested to put something up there. But it's basically very limited. Should somebody like a community member come and say, hey, I'm putting on, a fundraiser for the school or whatever, we say no, sorry.
Right,
There's other platforms.
Yeah. okay. So I think that's the direction that you're getting from the board.
Okay,
Andrew said he wanted board approval for the messages, though. Are you okay with doing that? Or do you that instead, or are you prefer it for the board level?
I'm okay with discretion.
We need to vote on that.
no, it's
No,
not
we're-
on for a
we're-
vote. I didn't realize, I mean, probably should have put it on for action. I didn't think it was gonna be.
No,
All that
I think we
complicated,
just
but-
wanted to establish a policy and we did, and so.
Yeah.
The discretion is yours.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to item 11.
I'm just gonna contextualize the next couple of items,
Okay.
few items, really just, these are kind of things that have been ongoing. We're just kind of continuing the conversation. I'm coming back here with some more formalized information for this to be, to be continued. So I put on leak relief. Sorry, you can read off the agenda item now.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, just basically this next item is leak relief and LWUP. Because as we've discussed the two items, you see that there's kind of this related nature of the two of them. But basically I created two different memos because it gets kind of complicated to talk about the two at the same time. So we can start with the leak relief memo. This is as you guys have dealt with people requesting leak relief, one of the things you guys have brought up is, hey, how many times has this person come before us to request leak relief? And while you always have that data, we share with you like a big Excel file that lists all of the leak relief requests. The policy itself doesn't put a cap on it. If you look at the other leak relief, we at the end here, I mean, there's several items. There's basically our leak relief resolution. And then there's some, the leak relief raw data that we always share with you in this Excel format. And then there's also what other districts do. And I would say that we are anomalous in kind of allowing, not having that spelled out how many times you can request leak relief. So I would at the bare minimum say, and this is not on for action, I don't think we're proposing any amendments to the resolution tonight, but I'm just kind of highlighting, I would suggest that you guys put a cap into the resolution. And then there's a couple other things that I'll just, I mean, if you have any questions about that, that's kind of the capping issue. Then you guys have talked about flume devices and how could we incentivize basically a flume device. One thing that I think would potentially work, and this kind of dovetails with this other minimum relief threshold that you guys have also brought up. So like looking back at that data, there's an event, you know, from a while ago, but where essentially we gave relief for at $8. When we look at, you know, how much it costs us to basically administer leak relief, you know, because obviously some of it is like, oh, you discover the leak, you start to talk to the person. I mean, often you discover the leak, right? We as a, especially obviously if it's a blind leak that's going to be you know, eligible potentially for relief. It's often we discover it, we come here and we start talking to the person, we're preparing leak relief information for them to come before the board, not to mention the time that they're actually at the board and all of that. So we estimate that to be like $100 to $160. That's probably a conservative, it may be more than that if you really got super granular. And so, you know, the kind of weirdness of effectively forgiving somebody's $8 leak relief when, you know, essentially it's almost $200 for us to administer that seems pretty weird. And if you look at other districts, a lot of times they essentially have like a minimum amount, absolute amount that's associated with the leak relief.
Or they don't grant the relief.
Or they don't grant it. Yeah, it's just basically, it needs to be, I mean, some of them, you know, our monthly water bills are pretty low. So some of it is that fact, but some of them essentially, it's like, it has to be 1.5 times as much as your regular use, which ultimately we kind of get to that through the way that we apply the relief. But it's still, I think just having an absolute bottom would be appropriate. And then one of the things that if you did have something like that, so you could say, let's say you had it at 160, or another potential would be to have it at actually the cost of the flume device or some, you know, substantial portion of the flume device. And then you could say, you know, we're granting this leak relief, but on the condition that you purchase a flume device or another comparable automated meter reading device.
So is this something you want to bring back to the board?
Yeah, I think I think it's complex enough. I
Yeah.
was just kind of trying to distill everything that you guys have brought up before when we've looked at this, and also provide some data to help you make this decision. And actually, one of the last points I make, and we just received something in the mail today that we're going to start testing out in terms of the capability of a particular technology. But I really want us to try to get automated meter reads so that we would, that would, you know, for such a small staff and for a district that is impacted by drought, it's a little crazy for us to not have automated meters at this point in time, I'd say. And so I really want us to push towards that. And I would say this may not be the most, I mean, it may make more sense to kind of see if we can make some headway there and then look back at this leak relief policy, because I do think there's a lot of interface between, okay, if somebody knows what their consumption is daily, then there's less excuse for them to have a blind leak, for example. Anyways, so I'm actually probably recommending that we, you know, we kind of think about this and you can kind of stew on it. And then I'd maybe even suggest that we bring it back. Either like, okay, we've, you know, this as a district, we've decided not to go the direction of automated meter reads for whatever reason, or postpone it for an indefinite amount of time, in which case, okay, fine, let's hash this out again. or if it looks like we're gonna get to that in a more timely manner, or, you know, at least develop our pilot studies or whatever we're gonna do, that we postpone the overhaul of the leak relief resolution until then. So, you know, some of these things around the minimum and capping, I think you could do that first,
Yeah.
you know, and then just basically say, but like the overhaul of this thing with the kind of intention that we're still gonna more comprehensively look at the leak relief resolution. But we're ready to institute some of these things like the minimum and the cap. Anyway, so that's what I'm suggesting, and I'll bring it back to you guys whenever you want it back.
Okay,
This, I really appreciate the amount of work you put into this. It's super, your memos particularly are really, really helpful, and finding out what the other districts are doing is very informative, I thought. Is the automated meter reading realistically within the next couple of years, do you think?
I think so. Like I said, we just got this device in today, and I had conferred with a company a couple weeks ago around this technology that may work out here and is pretty you know, it's expensive, so I think we need to think about it more comprehensively in the context of our 5-year CIP plan. But I definitely think it's doable within the next couple
is
of
that something that we could ask the customers to share the cost of?
Well, yeah, at some level, I mean, they are gonna bear the cost of it, whether
Directly or indirectly?
yeah.
Well, could we do a pilot program with a small number?
Yeah,
of-
that's the nice thing about this new technology, is that it's very easy to pilot. It depends on the type of technology and the sort of network that you're dealing with. Sometimes they essentially create a mesh network through the meters themselves, and then it's really hard to pilot because you basically need enough there in the field in order to kind of bolster the network. This one doesn't do that. It pings off a different thing. So anyways, I mean, obviously we can talk about this in the context of the automated meter readers,
Yeah.
but I definitely am still pushing actively around that. And so, but I think probably within the next 6 months, you know, this, like, especially in terms of this year's CIP, we would know whether, hey, let's just have at the leaf resolution and do some things right now, because it's just not practical to wait for all of this other stuff to happen.
I think that I'd like to see on as an action item though, the parts that we can do now.
Okay, just
Because I
for
think that would
November.
be easier. Because we always run into this problem of the discretionary part of it, and I think that we need some. What guardrails we can put in reasonably now, like a base amount. for
Okay,
instance,
why don't,
that
based
covers
on
our
this,
administrative costs.
what I would suggest is,
Getting that.
yeah, I'll put it on for November. If you guys have specific things that you would like to see amended in the leak relief resolution, you can just send me emails and let me know exactly what you want to see there. And I can kind of distill everybody's comments into one thing, and I can also you know, provide amendments that I think should be in there. And then we can bring it back in November so you can look at that. But I would still urge us to not get too like into the,
Yeah.
just like really the ones that are more basic amendments.
Okay. So does this item now include the limited water use permit?
Yeah, so now we can switch to the other memo and the
Okay.
limited water use permit, because they're very kind of similar
Yeah.
in nature. Okay. Some material here. This one I'd say is more complicated at a kind of theoretical level.
Your issue being in the enforcement?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think all of it gets into this kind of difficult territory. Some of it, I would say, fundamentally. So this is, sorry, I'm just going to start from the top so I don't go meander all over the place. But this is sort of a equivalent when we look at these LWEP exceedances. This is very similar to what we were just looking at with leak relief. is like, do we have effectively repeat offenders that are just kind of like, oh, you know, whatever. So that kind of looks at that, and it's true that essentially we're dealing with some of the same people even annually going over their limit. And there's some complexity here. Just because they've been identified here doesn't mean that they are, you know, effectively in violation, right? Because of this, how we enforce the whole thing. It's like we let people know, hey, you've gone over, and sometimes people can get back within their limit. And then they don't come before the board, right? So we just had a couple of folks come before the board. That meant they, you know, they'd been told they'd been gone over their limit, and then it looked like they were not going to get within their limit by then, you know, once we did those meter reads. So you know, that's the what is identified here in this data is like, hey, we had to tell you you were over your limit, not that you were in violation of your limit, if that makes sense. So and then the other thing I think is, you know, we have no penalties associated with the LWUP. So one of the things you guys had talked about is like, hey, could we make somebody get a flume device? It's really, you can see that it lends itself, like when we were just talking about the leak relief, the fact that you guys are granting leak relief means that you could be like, hey, either you can do this or you can get a flume device. I could imagine if you had a penalty here, you could have a similar structure. Either you pay the penalty or you need to get a flume device. I mean, I don't know what our capacity is to tell somebody to get a flume device. Like, again, the enforcement side of this thing is really weak, that it's not structured in that way that, you know, anyway. So that's some of the difficulty. I would say that there's a more kind of fundamental issue with the LWUP policy resolution, which is basically the unevenness of LWUPs. The fact that some people have LWUPs, some people don't. Some people have LWUPs, but they're really high. Some people have, you know, of most recently, we've kind of been giving this 2,700. I would much prefer that we just spell that out in the LWUP policy, that it's, you know, essentially 2,700 cubic feet per quarter. It just make things easier. And I don't really quite understand. I mean, at least since I've been on the board, I'm not seeing you guys employ that discretion. Oh, you know, this, it makes sense for you to have X for individual, you know, single family residences. So anyway, that's, you know, I mean, this is nothing new, but just pointing out that there's, yeah, there's a lot of nebulous language in the LWUP policy that makes it very difficult.
A lot of resolutions involved as well.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. We kind of wanted to highlight that this thing is a mess. I mean, we have this issue with a lot of our resolutions where it's like, this is amended, but this one in particular, I think is just like, you know, the prototypic example of let's just overhaul this whole thing, repeal all of this and replace it with one succinct resolution so that you don't have to look at all of the
Yeah,
history just to understand what the current resolution says.
yeah.
That makes sense.
That's
Time,
true.
yeah.
How about the, you think that it's legal for us to impose penalties on people?
I do think so. I think especially when, I mean, and I put that in that context of the if you tie it to the administrative time that it takes us to actually enforce this policy.
Yeah,
There are fees that are independent of, you know, like penalties that are incentives of them, they're on their own, that
yeah,
I think are even legal. But I think if you really tie it to actually the administrative costs,
Yeah.
then you're like very solid legal grounds. But obviously, you know, I can look into that and
that
consult.
sounds right.
Anyway.
I have a couple other ideas for enforcement options.
Mm-hmm.
Could we reduce the flow at the meter? Is that possible?
I don't know. I mean, physically, we don't have the capability to do that currently.
Another idea is to reduce their LWUP by 10% for each violation, or 5%, whatever it is. So we're not penalizing them financially, but we're giving them a lower
Allowance.
Yeah, that's another idea.
Okay.
What do we do if they? So we just if there's no other penalty, they just can go to zero.
I mean, if you look at
Except for
the,
money.
the policy itself allows us to eventually shut off their
Yeah,
water,
We
right?
just don't wanna do that.
No.
But that's basically the only enforcement mechanism that we have, is shutting,
Yeah.
shutting off their water, so.
Yeah,
There's only two things you can do. You can take back the water or charge them money, right? I mean,
Yeah, and
that's it.
yeah.
Yeah. We're just looking for more middle ground, I think.
I guess
that's
the,
what comes
the
up
question
every time.
is whether we can do some of these things because, I mean, some of this came up, right, because you told, somebody that they should get a tank, what do you call it?
Rainwater catchment, yeah.
Catchment, you know, and they didn't do it. So some of it is effectively, you know, what is the legality of making people, you know, telling them they need to get a flume device, they need to get, you know, a rain catchment system. Some of that, like, I guess there's penalties, and then there's you need to do X, and then there's shutting off water or restricting water in some other way. But I can look into, obviously, I mean, I can look into the legality of all of that and bring forward, here are your options, you know, obviously some of them may be struck just based on legal grounds.
does Stinson Beach have limited water use meters?
Uh-uh.
We don't know.
No,
No.
they don't have any limits.
No,
Mm-mm.
I just pay more.
Yeah, they just pay more. And I don't even know if they have tiered use.
Is there a legal challenge to like just changing our every water meter to a limited?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I can look, you know, obviously there's other drought restricted areas that I'm pretty I think we're kind of unique in terms of allowing different limits.
Yeah.
To me I mean, it always struck me as like it's almost borrowing from like California water right type stuff. Like you've been here first, so you
Mhm.
get this, but then people that come in next, they don't get as much. That's sort of like what it's building off of. But
Yeah.
I think the water, you know, like as a public entity who's being served by a public water district, I don't think that that actually has sound legal grounds. I mean, I'm totally speculating here, but I could imagine that, you know, it's actually more appropriate to provide the same
Sure.
limit to everybody than what we currently
I
have.
mean, especially when there's like a court case that proved that there was a finite source of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the idea behind it is exactly that. Okay, we managed it in this way based on this historical usage. Therefore, we'll preserve all of this historical usage. You used X, so you'll continue to use X. You used Y, you'll continue to use Y. The problem is that we didn't look at what the limits were for all of them. It's not like everybody has a limit and you've just preserved that historical usage, right? You've just essentially assumed that, you know, everybody is using the same amount of water as they were from day one. It's kind of weird.
What happens when a property exchange hands?
Nothing. So that's one of the things that I brought up. Thanks for reminding me. There's also the other thing that I would say that I think needs to be overhauled on the LWUP policy is what triggers an LWUP.
Yeah.
So I brought up the example because it was like kind of almost day one when I got here. I was like, wait a second. So a merging of lots doesn't introduce an LWUP. And to me, that's an egregious example of why not. Because we know that agriculture, like not irrigation is a primary use of water. We have strict resolution policy that says you can't use your water on a property you don't own, right? But it's or even the property you do own, but that is not merged and, you know, is not served by this specific meter. As soon as they merge their lot, then they have more arable land. And now you're saying, oh, you can. Now you could imagine that now they're just watering twice as much as they did before. That seems like a much more obvious, you know, if you look at the language that we use around likely increase in water use, that seems like a much more likely use than say, oh, I'm up, you know, adding on a third bedroom, honestly.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
I agree too.
So, and then another example though, I think around like what I would say is if we're moving towards from a sort of equity standpoint, to get, hey, we want more and more people on LWUPs. I think a sale of the, you know, a selling of a property should also institute an LWUP.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it feels like right now, LWAPs are limited to if you've done the right thing and come in for a building permit, then you get penalized for
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
Agreed. And so just from the standpoint of like, it's a kind of an administrative nightmare to have a bunch of LWUPs, especially with our manual meter reads. So this is another, just like the leak relief, I'm like, let's wait. And this one even more so because we talked about some of the like easy things that we could just improve the leak relief resolution. But this one in particular, I would say let's maybe wait to overhaul it until we have automated meter reads, and then we could be like, hey, we want to get more people on LUPs, we could do X to do that, if that is, you know, legally sound or whatever. And it's not as administratively a nightmare because basically we'd turn to a computer and be like, oh, how much water did that person use? Oh, they're over their LUP, you know? So that's kind of, yeah.
And if we did explore what you were recommending, which is everybody gets converted over to an LWUP, which I think seems a more fair thing to do and less administrative tasks of you. Is that something that we would vote on as just the five of us, or would it
I would
go to
say
the town?
there's complicated legal issues with doing that. And so I would say let's not, I mean, I would look into it. If it's something that you guys, I mean, I think it's helpful for you guys to just know what is the legal framework of all of this. So I can essentially look into that. Yeah, I would say it's not really of value until you guys know sort of what your legal guardrails are to really explore these ideas.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, I love the idea of everybody conserving water, and I think this town historically has done an amazing job of that. And, you know, it's not like we're trying to take a lot of people who are out of control with their water use and herd them in. You know, every time push has come to shove, this town has really come through historically. So we're working with people who want to do the right thing almost 100%,
Yeah.
with a few outliers that you're going to find anywhere. And our job is to take the water that we have and give it to the people. Like, you know, that's what we're here for. And if we've got plenty of water, people should be able to use plenty of water. And if we have to restrict, then they need to restrict. So I really have two minds about this. It's sort of like the money at the school. Do we want to be super thrifty? No, we're supposed to spend all that money on the kids. Like the tax dollars that we get for the kids, we're supposed to spend on the kids. How we do it is our choice. But the water that we get from Arroyo Hondo is supposed to go to the people of the town. And once it goes past the meter, they can use it however the damn please. I have strong opinions about how that should be done, but you know, nobody always asks me. So, you know, I think that we need to, while we're having these discussions, which I think are important, we also need to remember that the people in this town we're all on the same side, and people have always worked really hard with the BPUD, almost all of them. So,
Yeah.
you know, I just want to underline that.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's some sort of flexibility that could be built into the LWUP system. It's very rigid. Like you say, we're not always under restriction, so you know, we don't always need to feel this tightness about water use.
Sometimes
right?
there's abundance.
Sometimes there's abundance, yeah. So do we even
Yeah.
enforce LWUPs in a time of abundance? I mean, or does
Yeah,
maybe-
I think
maybe
that
not
that's an
that.
important.
I think we need to talk
Yeah,
about it.
Yeah, but I think that these types of more nuanced approaches become much more doable if you had automated meter reads, right?
You know, you're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah. No, but I mean, then we can, you know, if we have that, then we could explore some of these ideas of like, hey, we just don't really need to do that because we know what the acute usage is and blah, blah, blah. So.
I'm okay postponing the overhaul of the LWUPs, but I'd really like to try to work towards some sort of middle ground for enforcement. I just feel like our hands are tied. We don't do anything. People come, repeat customers, they're in front of us again, nothing happens. That
So-
feels like, it feels very ineffective. as a board member to go through that, so I would still like to look on. Whether it's next month or the next couple months, before
Okay.
next summer.
I would actually say, well, here's an idea. I do think that these two things play off of each other, the leaf relief and the LWUP. So let's still stick to the idea that November, you guys will do all of those edits,
Okay.
essentially amendments of that. And then for December, we could put this one on, and so you can kind of have an idea of, because that one's a lot simpler, but I think it does make you start to think in this frame of mind, but then you could apply some of that. So like do it in series as opposed to parallel.
All right. Yeah, this is a long ongoing discussion.
Yeah.
Ever since I've been on the board, especially the part about enforcing the limits, and when people cross over, we have never ever been able to come up with a solution to that problem, so.
Very many people.
Well, it's not a lot. I mean, when you look at these stats, there's two exceedances by 12, and then you have 7 with 3 and 2 with 4, so.
Yeah,
It's a
but I do
relatively
think it would be
small-
really nice if like when somebody comes before the board, you have this lengthy discussion and you basically say, you need to get a flume device, you need to get a rain catchment. Like
Yeah.
it would be nice to have teeth in your resolution that
Yes.
allows you to enforce something like that, because those are generally the people that are potentially problematic,
Yeah.
and you've effectively just targeted those
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah,
Can
All
I
right.
put a couple more ideas in everybody's heads to noodle on?
Mhm.
I think LWUP should be based on usage. This was sort of alluded to, right? Like, let's say I want to add a bedroom to my house. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to use more water. I may not at all, in fact. But if you look at a property's usage, as their usage goes up, they are definitely using more water. So I think we should apply an LWUP to a property where we're seeing increasing usage. I think that's something we should noodle on and perhaps implement. Does that make sense?
yeah,
Because
Yeah.
we're right now we apply it almost. We're making assumptions about a property, whereas if you just look at the usage, that's the data that we have. So I think if they hit a certain threshold, whether it's 225 gallons a day, the sort of the baseline that we apply the LWUP, then we should just apply an LWUP. That's something that I'd like to consider. Okay.
okay,
Also, looking at the LWUP ordinance or ordinances, if we were to shut off somebody's water, and I hope that it doesn't come to that ever, I don't think we have a procedure for turning the water back on. I don't know. I think that's something we should add in, because maybe that's part of the reason we're scared to shut off people's water. But if there was a simple,
Yeah.
you come back in a month, then or a week, then your water's back on. So if it's something that's spelled out, then we might be more inclined to do it. So just
yeah. There's always been an issue though about health and safety.
Yeah.
Because once you turn people's water off, now they can't
Sure.
bathe, they can't,
Use the
et cetera.
sewer,
Oh, yeah,
flush the toilet.
right. And
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely turn people's water off for not paying bill, like that whole, as long as you have a framework and a warning system and all of that,
Yeah.
you do have the legal authority to turn people's water off. Obviously, it's something we extremely rarely do. But not the nice thing, but obviously the kind of straightforward thing there is pay your bill and we'll turn your water back on.
Yeah.
So there's not really the equivalent of stop using water and we'll turn it on, because they're not using water because
Right.
we've turned it off.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We need to have some language about, well, if we are gonna turn off their water, then how do they get their water back on? I'd like to see that in
Okay.
LWUP.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks.
All right, heavy subject. All right, number 12, are we doing that one?
Yes, we are.
Proposed road and ditch maintenance,
This is, yeah.
right away issues.
So basically, I'm another one where we kind of complex issue, not ready to overhaul ordinance 30 tonight. But I just wanted to point out a few things that happened last month, or a couple of months ago. We had somebody come before us to request what was effectively repair and maintenance of the road. And this was to use asphalt that we've tested and that the board has essentially, on many, many occasions, they've already weighed in on this issue. So what I would suggest we do going forward is effectively the board has made this decision. We don't need to have people come before us to request to do repair and maintenance in the road. And so that should just kind of happen at an administrative level. We also dealt with this in terms of, encroachments into the right of way and people doing repair and maintenance. I just really want to encourage people that, much like the county right of way, like if you do anything and encroach into the right of way, you need to effectively submit for a permit. So we have the luxury of having very minimal bureaucracy. So somebody can come in here, we can determine the project is repair and maintenance and issue them a permit fee, like with no fee, and they just come in and walk out the door with their approval. That is essentially the pilot program that we're administering currently, where we're just really letting people know, hey, anything you do in the right of way. So let's say that was erecting a
Mailbox.
a mailbox, thank you. You need to come in. If you're gonna fill some potholes, you need to come in, but it's just allowing us to ensure what is going on in the rights of way. Then we give you your right of way permit for the, mostly what I'm focused on here was the repair and maintenance. And then they go off. We also had this, you guys had directed us to let the neighbors know for that particular case. So we basically were piloting that. I included a letter that we, effectively sent out to neighbors, but I think it's really important there to not frame this as, hey, every time somebody wants to do a repair and maintenance, there's an opportunity for somebody else to talk about, no, if you fill potholes, then people drive too fast. Like you guys have already weighed in on that, and that's pretty kind of dysfunctional. If somebody wants people to slow down, they can come before the board and request that speed bumps be put in. Like that's just a more appropriate way to deal with all of this. So this is kind of another thing that we were saying. And along those lines, I actually, the whole kind of managing of how we get these letters to, I mean, it seems like trivial, but basically it's really annoying. And then you're having to contact all of these people. And what I prefer us to do is kind of what other people do when they do road work, which is put up a sandwich board with lots of tiny writing that Jenny can't read. No. Put up a sandwich board that lets people know, hey, there's going to be some, permitted road work in this area over these days. And that's what I'd like. We haven't done that yet, but that's what I'd like to pilot. The other point around this is part of this new pilot program with the asphalt that we have is we increase the septic drainage fees over these next 3 years to get back to the historical funding. So that also means that we need to do more work in that department. When one of the things that we're doing is basically bringing that asphalt base. Once we, permit somebody's project, basically deliver it to the site for them to spread in those areas. Another line that needs to be cleaned up around all of this is basically working with the fire department and the Todd drainage program to figure out what are the roads that we effectively, it's not just about us delivering it and having neighbors do it, but we proactively maintain these roads because they're so important to ingress. We proactively maintain these ditches because they're so important for the overall drainage system to work properly. So anyways, these are all things that are related to this. And then the doozy is basically the legal authority around the management of rights of way. So since I last spoke to you, we last met, I started to look into all of the efforts that have, essentially tried to establish whether we own the roads, what are the rights around all of this. So there was a lot of work that was done related to this, but it was really in the context of potential, legal action. So it's never really come forward in a public meeting, but it essentially got very, very close to, revisions of Ordinance 30 that were all framed within this legal opinion and stuff like that. So what I'd suggest is, and then there was essentially, hey, it's going to cost this much more to get it over the finish line. What I would suggest is that we do that. And some of the complexity is how do we surface that in a public meeting. And I would get guidance around all of that. But I would suggest that there was a lot of resources that was put towards that. We continually talk about this, and there's some language right now in ordinance 30 that really, if we are, if we need to clean up according to that legal opinion. So anyways, that's what I'm suggesting. This is another one where I would suggest we first get that legal opinion and go through all of that before we ultimately surface the public amendments of ordinance 30 that are, essentially informed by all of
We
that.
need to have it ready to vote on before we.
Yes,
we
yeah,
need to
yeah.
Know what we're doing. before
Yeah,
we
and
do it.
it's, I mean, it's, not to belabor the point, it's just awkward because basically all of the discussions around this were happening in closed session due to this like potential litigation. So it's just how do we then continue this conversation, given that all of that was happening, basically in closed sessions. I need to get advice on how that happens, because obviously it's not appropriate to have these conversations in a closed session, right? They're just like ordinance 30, do we own the roads? There's nothing statutorily that allows us to have that conversation in closed session. However, all of the information right now that I have that I'm looking at is all confidential, at least as it was presented at that time, because it had, impacts on this potential litigation. So.
Do you need any kind of a directive from us to go ahead and spend the money on the lawyer?
Yeah, I think, not a formal vote or anything, but just a directive of yes, please look into that. What I was thinking is I could come once you guys kind of generally tell me, yes, we're in favor of this. I would go to the lawyer and basically get a formal proposal that I can bring back to the board next time, or I could just go ahead with it. I mean.
Well, here's one.
Take a rough order of magnitude of what it's gonna cost to.
Deal with it. Mhm.
Each the lawyer.
I mean, there have been legal opinions that have been given to us over the years over
Yeah.
what's called ownership of the road. And I'm quite familiar with what they conclude and everything, so.
Yes.
I don't know how much we should provide the lawyer with copies of the opinions.
Oh, yeah. So this is basically, and just to be clear, so effectively those opinions were provided to another lawyer that said, hey, here's everything. We still need to do X, Y, Z. Can you help us with that? And then I put that in here, but it's, these are old numbers. So essentially in 2011, the estimate cost for legal support was approximately $5,000 for 20 hours work. Note, obviously this is going to be more expensive now because it's not, 2011 anymore.
Okay,
But I don't, yeah.
if we're gonna amend the ordinance 30 then to be more in sync with the legal opinions that we're getting, then I guess we need to get the legal opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, agree, right, so why don't you just go for it?
Okay.
All right, that takes us to item,
Can I make one more?
Oh, yeah,
quick
sure,
comment
yeah.
About neighbor notification. Do we have an email address spreadsheet for properties, like rather than sending them letters? You're saying that's sort of like burdensome for staff. Could we fire off an email to these like affected neighbors as a way?
Yeah, it's hard because we have a customer database that is not always the person who lives there, and that's really the person you need to inform. That's kind of where I'm like, if I look at road work that's happening all over the place, they put up a sign and say
Yeah.
road work is happening.
Okay.
They don't I don't come home to like my own personal email or whatever.
Yeah, no, I like the sandwich board too.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, I believe item 13 is being continued, is that right?
Cool.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, yes, that will come forward at November
Okay.
probably.
Then moving on to potential committee updates, and non bolded items are not up for discussion. So the only bolded one that is item 18. Oh, there's also 23. Item 18, BEP/bike path ad hoc committee. Chris said see item 9.
Yeah, so sorry, this is a little confusing, but then basically this is the C item 9. That was the urban forestry that had to do with the BEP side of trees stuff. So that's essentially C item 9 because there was talk about trees in this meeting. Now this is just the straight up memo from the bike path committee. That's just, you know, a general update from the committee and its work that it's done since you guys, since we last all met as
Okay.
a full board. Okay,
And then we're moving to item 23.
wait, so let me do
Oh, sorry.
18, sorry.
I don't know if you know what here is under 18.
Yeah, sorry, I don't
Here, I
either. I'm
have it.
gonna have to bring it up.
This is the memo where additionally, we are working to secure funding.
Yeah, this is the one-
50K shortfall in order to pursue full school district.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm just gonna bring it up because I'm also without the memo and my computer seems to have turned off. Bring it up on my phone, sorry.
The memo says.
Yeah,
Director's compensation, I think it just didn't get
I just noticed that. there.
switched.
oh, okay, sorry.
Mine has item 18. BEP bike path
Just that.
ad hoc memo.
Down, no, this way. Up to the top of it is what I'm trying to say, apparently I can't speak English. Right there.
Oh, I see.
It just got copied and pasted.
A different, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
That's no problem, I just thought you might want to.
I did read it, but I didn't catch that the first time.
Yes.
It's not like you have
Yeah. I did not have your nails on this.
Okay, so basically the first thing is a name clarification that will come forward in the future meeting, effectively disentangling the bet and the bike path. And, you know, we can talk about that next meeting. I think that will have to be on for action because you're essentially, you know, modifying the committees. The next thing is basically a bike path project update. So on September 24th, committee members Kevin and Georgia participated in a site visit with representatives from WRA, BKF, and Marin County DPW. It was a very productive meeting. Off the heels of that meeting, there was some discussion on how we were going to approach this. Some of this surfaced, these same types of issues surfaced in our special meeting on the bike path. Ultimately, as Don Smith was requesting, I think it makes most sense to effectively permit the entirety of the bike path. I am, you know, after thinking about it long and hard, I just really would love it if at the end of this project we have a continuous bike path that leads from point A to point B. Effectively, we have $150,000 shortfall to be able to do that. It's just so much more effective, honestly, to do all of that project all at once. It's just going to be cheaper and more efficient to do it that way. And it's in the grand scheme of things, not that much money. So if, you know, effectively, I'll report back on December around some of the avenues I'm pursuing for that $150,000 shortfall. There's no expectation that the board would, you know, the BPUD board would provision more funds. I think that we have put a lot of money towards that, and I'm not favoring that we put more money towards it. I'm really looking at other agencies to essentially contribute.
Just would like to comment that at last Tuesday's school board meeting, I did bring up the fact that this is something that is being done here at BPUD. And I think it's appropriate that the school participate because that is primarily going to affect the children being able to have a safe access to school.
Right.
So I think it's something,
School's feeling very pinched, but yes, I agree with you.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, you don't come up with a bond or something if you need to that amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to talk about it now. I think
Yeah.
that I'll pursue that avenue too. I think the idea is just to kind of pursue things in parallel in hopes that some of them or portions of it come through. You know, I mean, I guess it may be a situation where if we were $10,000 short, then maybe I'd come back to the board and be like, hey, let's supplement this and move forward. But yeah, I just ultimately feel like that project is going to feel like it's going to be so much more championed by the community if it really allows you to get all the way from point A to point B as
Yeah.
opposed to just, All right, and then I also included a draft of the coastal development permit project description that helps you kind of think of the context of the whole project.
Yeah, thank you, great.
All right, moving down to the next voted item, that would be item 23.
That, yeah, we've already covered, that was the roads thing that we just talked about.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so then we're going down to meeting closing, you know, right before I get to that, I wanted to take a minute, to say that, you know, Phil Buchanan for many, many years was the general manager of the BPUD, and I'm sorry to report that his daughter Brianna passed away a few days ago. And she was a longstanding member of our community, and I just wanted to say for the record that, on behalf of the board, that we express our condolences to Judy, and, it's very unfortunate and sad, and I just wanted to, put it on our record, so. I'm not trying to be a downer, but I just wanted to remember her.
Thank you.
And with that, we can continue to close the meeting.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
Very sad. Yeah,
The tree that the family planted for Phil is,
sorry.
the tree that the family planted for Phil on the BPUD land, with
Yeah.
the bench that Chuck made,
Yeah,
that tree has deceased. And
Oh.
I'm wondering if we might be able to, even talk to, I was thinking talking to Janine Ryan or something, who, some of the old people who were involved previously with habitat restoration up there might be something else. It's hard to get a single live oak going in the middle of a field. And I know that the staff was watering it. I mean, it wasn't through lack of care. I think it just didn't go. But,
to replace that.
something would be nice,
Yeah.
because the surround is still there, but the tree is dead, and that's pretty depressing.
Yes.
And I think it would be nice if we could,
Can you look into that?
Yep.
Thanks.
especially now.
Yeah, all right, let's go on to finish the meeting then. We have minutes of the regular meeting from July the 16th.
I thought they looked good.
Yeah. Agreed.
I really like the bold. The information.
Does anybody have changes or corrections? If not, I have a motion to approve those minutes.
Thank you,
I
Annie.
make a motion, and I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the July 16th regular meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oops. I voted,
Moves on
sorry.
to the-
I'm just so happy that you guys are happy with the minutes.
Yeah,
I just can't
yeah.
contain my enthusiasm.
Item 25 is the regular meeting minutes of September the 17th. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? And if not, then I get a motion to approve them. Somebody?
I have, just, when I was reading it, I saw something about the Y project in here, and I had a meeting today, like a sea level rise steering committee meeting with the county, and someone talks about the Y project, which is wrapping up. They just hydro seeded it, and they're gonna plant 10,000 plants,
Wow.
and they're very happy about it, and they're excited for it to be done.
The Y?
They also said that the bridge is tsunami resistant, so if there's a tsunami, go to the bridge.
That's where I'm getting. Seems a little low.
It does seem a little low.
It does, it
Oh,
does.
sure, those are just a little sick.
Yeah, but Grace, you'll wash away, but the bridge will
The
still
bridge
be
will still
there.
be there.
I myself to it.
You know, my biggest concern was the visibility, and I must say,
It's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
same here,
Yeah.
it really is good,
I
you get
agree.
to see up and down the road.
Yeah. Also, speaking of, is that a live oak? There's like this beautiful tree there that I'm like, have you always been there? Or
Oh, yeah,
You can
it's
really
just like
see it.
amazing.
there's that one tree, you're right.
Yeah, it's really, really
Yeah.
pretty.
So hydro seed is that the green stuff?
Yeah.
My kids that in the car, they keep asking me, what's that green stuff? And I was hoping it's seeding, planting,
Yeah.
but it looks so like
It's like,
fluorescent.
yeah, it comes, I think it's like a way to like keep it adhere to the earth, and it also
Okay.
has like built-in.
Nutrients.
And you can see what you've already seeded too. It's helpful.
Really nice there.
Okay.
All
Well, they
right.
timed it well, because this is the perfect time
Yeah.
of year to be doing
Yeah.
that.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, you're right.
July or June.
Anyway,
So
so
these-
these say that.
All right,
These minutes are more streamlined. How do we feel about these minutes?
How do you feel about
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. They're almost too streamlined, but I'm okay with it.
it?
Oh, no.
Oh.
Well, I mean, just compared,
I
well, compared to
voted
the
too
last one.
soon. Yeah,
Well, compared to the last ones, like,
yeah.
July, which by the way, what happened to the August minutes? Did we already approve those or
I
something?
think something happened with the naming,
July.
Bell had,
No.
Thought we
They
did-
just, we forgot to, because you guys questioned the minutes in August, the July ones didn't get approved, and then we skipped over them last time. So August has been approved, so we're just
Okay.
yeah.
wrapping that up. But what you're saying, Kevin, is you like the format of the July ones better than September, because September seems to be a little sparser than the July ones.
Personally, I'm okay with both of them. I'm okay with September if it saves a bunch of staff time. It's
Mhm.
got the YouTube link, it's got the transcript times. I'm totally fine with either. I'm just pointing out that September seems to be it is a little bit more
Lighter, yeah.
I really prefer July,
Okay,
be that person.
we'll let Annie know.
I think July gets just the perfect spot with it.
All right.
Great.
Okay,
Bella's hearing
Thank-
that.
Yeah, I think we'll
Yes.
just
Relay it to
between the
Annie.
other thing is basically that what is this, September? The September one follows the agenda format. So that was basically, I think, useful. So essentially combining the two so that you can, yeah.
a little bit more meat in the
Yes.
description, but follow the.
Okay,
agenda.
next time they will be perfect.
They are so nearly.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, how about a motion to approve the September meeting, September 17th, regular meeting minutes?
So move.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the warrants, August 1st through August 31st, 2025, item 26 on the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the warrant? Any questions or comments about the warrants?
It's your baby here.
Yeah, for some reason.
You find one that you didn't like?
No.
The 26,000 was,
26,000.
Pentacle drilling, but I think that's pretty.
Well, insulation, yeah.
Yeah, those are the monitoring wells.
How about the Fahey tree, the resource recovery grind? That was that one-time thing because resource recovery was backed up. We had to bring in a grinder. Is that what that was?
No, we always
Ye-
have to bring in grinders, but yeah. here,
Yeah, we do grinders. Well, we normally have a grinder come 4 times a year, and it's usually around $5,000. This year we only had it twice because the Y project had like stymied the grinder coming in, so it was super late this year, and so it was a little bit more money because they had to grind more material.
Okay. And does that cost get shared with the other stakeholders of resource recovery, like Stinson Fire?
Well, I mean, really, we just look at our funding and then our basically, yeah, what is that, revenue
Yeah.
and expenditures. So they just,
Yeah.
they don't actually, it's not like we look at the cost, oh, okay, Stinson, you owe this
Right.
much or anything.
Okay.
It's just gives us a little more revenue cushion to cover some of these costs. I think Bell will probably come back in like December. We increased the rates. And it's kind of a mess this year. I was hoping that this year would be more reflective of like, hey, this is what everything looks like because of the Y project and not getting the grinder in. It's like a little bit of an anomalous year, but I mean, I feel like it almost is always some kind of thing happening
Yeah.
there. So anyways, but we will kind of run numbers and bring that back and sort of look at the solvency of resource recovery as we talked about doing after we increased rates.
Okay. Thanks.
So, I just one minor thing, but I think we talked about work clothes, or BPUD clothes. So I see there's kind of 2 line items. One is dedicated to Sean as a reimbursement,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other is just to Bolinas Surf Shop. They're both about 400 and.
Yeah, so basically, as part of the MOU this year, we said you can get your normal stipend, but we'll also provide you with like a uniform. So that's just like a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, and a hat. So now it's like they have their stipend of like they can get rain gear or boots or whatever they use it's like, you get 2 pairs of this and blah blah blah. But then additionally, it's like now we have emblemed yeah,
Mhm.
gear. So that, I believe that $400 is paying for that. That's why it's not getting reimbursed to somebody. It's basically us just purchasing that material and getting it out.
Right? Can I get a motion to approve these warrants?
I have one more question, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
The third from the bottom, BPUD lab work install septic tank. What is that?
Um,
Do you know?
yeah, so this is basically the work I was talking about in at the lab to prep some of the plumbing and all of
Okay.
that. Yeah, so there's several kind of high ticket items associated with lab work at the lab.
You know, the septic was part of that.
Yes, yeah, that was part of our testing of how the system looked and all that.
All right, no problem. Any other comments or questions? All right, maybe get a, go ahead, Grace.
City sewer and coast sanitary doing different things? It says city sewer was pumping. What did coast sanitary do? I think of them as pumping.
Yeah, sorry, where is that?
Oh, it's about a third of the way down, alphabetically, it's C, cities under
Okay.
capital one, city sewer and coast sanitary.
The coast sanitary is just the I'm sorry, at the plant. So we have a septic tank at the
Oh, at
treatment
the
plant.
Got it,
And-
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't
Mhm.
recognizing the address, that's my mistake, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, now can I get a motion to approve the warrants?
I so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
I-
Aye. And wrapping it up, materials to be signed by board members. I think there's some checks that are signed.
Yeah, please sign. checks.
Future agenda items, I think we have a note, you have your notes on. what we're
Yeah.
doing There.
I have one, could you just give us an update on fixing the Arroyo Honda Road next time?
Yes.
Okay.
mhm.
I was wondering if the furloughs had impacted, like if the person that we were dealing with was no longer with us or anything. But you don't have to tell me now.
Okay.
If anybody wants to come, but I'm interested.
Okay, next meeting date?
I have this November 19th.
Yeah, it's the 3rd November, and we're gonna be meeting here for the next 2 meetings.
Oh, okay.
'Cause, yeah, remember the fire district moved their meeting,
Right.
so we're meeting at the same time as them tonight, and
Is that the third Wednesday or is?
yeah, they normally meet the 4th Wednesday, they moved their November and
It's Thanksgiving, yeah.
So
All right.
It's nice to be back here, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is actually.
It's very comfy, isn't it?
I
Yeah. All
Do
right,
you feel that way?
I mean, it's easier,
it is. I should move back.
but where would we put all the people?
Yeah, past the thousands. All right, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Jack.
You should have a special.